Chapter 1035. 2 hours later. So there are many mysteries in that battle? Chu Qingyan listened to Water Spirit's narration and looked at the letter she presented with a deep gaze. Water Spirit said seriously, "There are indeed problems, but we haven't found out yet because of the long history." Chu Qingyan turned to look at Water Spirit seriously and sincerely. "Water Spirit, this matter concerns my father's innocence. I hope you can find the time to help me investigate." Water Spirit smiled when she heard this, and her serious face turned bright. "Young Princess Fei, don't worry. This subordinate will do my best to find out the truth." Chu Qingyan let out a breath of turbid air, and her entire body relaxed. She thanked him gratefully. Water Spirit poured her a cup of water and smiled. "You're too polite. It's this subordinate's fortune to be able to serve you. And for so many years, this subordinate has always wanted to thank you on behalf of the entire fierce cavalry." Chu Qingyan was puzzled. "Why do you say that?" Water Spirit lowered her eyes and smiled. When she raised her eyes, her expression was sincere and warm, full of gratitude. "Young Princess Fei, it's you who brought meaning to Master's life. You should still remember the Master you met for the first time. If you compare it to now, you will understand why we thousands of fierce cavalry are grateful to you." "You don't say. When I first saw him, I thought he was a soul reaper from hell. He was cold and lifeless, as if there was a dark and gloomy air around him that made people feel suffocated. But now, it feels like he's a completely different person. But he's still cold to outsiders." "Wait." At this point, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but touch her head. "So, did this mean that she really changed Big Ice Cube?" Shui Ling saw her lowering her head in contemplation and couldn't help smiling. "I thought that Master would be alone for the rest of his life. Fortunately, he met you." Chu Qingyan was embarrassed by the compliment and smiled shyly at her. "I'm really honored to be praised by such a great beauty." Shui Ling couldn't stop herself from laughing. "You're flattering this subordinate too much. Compared to you, this subordinate is nothing more than a green leaf. You're the real beauty that makes all who see you forget everything else." The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Then, they began to talk about a relatively relaxed topic. "Are all the people in this Ingchun courtyard also your highness subordinates?" Chu Qingyan asked. Water Spirit shook her head. "Not all of them. Some of the maids and manservants are just servants. However, the procuress and the girls here are indeed servants. They are responsible for collecting information and spying on some unspeakable inside stories. After all, there are many sanctimonious people in this world. They appear to be elegant and modest on the surface, but when it comes to wine and women, their true nature is exposed. What can't they get information from?" Chu Qingyan praised. "I heard that the brothels under your name are all over Sichuan. It must be very tiring to manage them. It's been hard on you." Water Spirit chuckled. "This is my job. What's so hard about it? A lifetime is so long. If I don't do something meaningful, then it's a waste of time. Moreover, our lives were saved by Master. We want to follow Master forever. No matter how hard or tiring it is, we're willing." Chu Qingyan reached out and patted her hand. She shook her head and smiled. "A great beauty like you, with a sweet mouth, capable and talented, will definitely be happy." Hearing this, Water Spirit was slightly stunned. Then she laughed at herself. "I'm afraid that this subordinate will be alone for the rest of his life." Chu Qingyan knew about her relationship with Feng Ling. A trace of pity appeared in her eyes. She held her hand and said gently, "In a person's life, the scariest thing is not to die alone. It's to die alone with a person who makes you die alone. There's no need to force yourself. Live according to your own thoughts. I believe that the people who love us are silently blessing us." Water Spirit looked at her in surprise, but her eyes were watery. "Shui Ling, before I met you, I had heard many stories about you. Now that I've met you, I feel like we've known each other for a long time. I hope that we can become good friends and that you can live a happy life." Chu Qingyan's smile was soft and gentle. It was a smile of concern and blessing. Water Spirit raised her head to stop the tears from falling. After she calmed down, she smiled and looked at the person in front of her. This subordinate finally understands why the person who changed master was not anyone else, but you. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan tilted her head and smiled. This is called personal charm. Water Spirit was amused by her shameless boasting. But there was this kind of person. No matter what she said, it would make you feel an inexplicable warm power. Then you would be gently persuaded. Thinking about it, his master's frozen heart had been melted little by the little princess. When Chu Qingyan walked out of Ingchun Yuan with Jasper, it was already an hour later. Jasper, did you notice that the procuress kept staring at my face? Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. Jasper hit the nail on the head, because the pockmarks on your face are growing in a different direction from when you went in. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but touch her face. As expected of someone who mingled in a magnificent place. She could even see this problem. Master, where are you going next? Jasper followed beside her and asked. Chu Qingyan pondered for a moment. Let's go back to the Fu first. His Highness should be back soon. Yes. So the two slowly walked in the direction of the King of England's Fu. Along the way, Chu Qingyan's pockmarked face attracted a lot of attention. A young and beautiful girl bumped into her from behind and pretended to drop her handkerchief. When she looked at her with pity, she saw the pockmarks on her face. She was so frightened that her face turned pale. Then she stomped her feet and ran away. There was also someone who affectionately called out, "Young master," from behind. When she turned around to look, the other party almost fainted as if they had seen a ghost. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but sigh. Jasper, it's said that different places raise different people. Are the women in the capital bolder and more unrestrained than the women in Jiangnan? Tell me, the way you get to know people is so full of tricks. Jasper replied methodically, but the majority of people are still scared away by you. Chu Qingyan touched her face. This is indeed a world that looks at the face. It's a principle that hasn't changed since ancient times. So, there are some killers who look handsome from the back, but they could be dinosaurs from the front. Distance makes the heart grow fonder. In the future, it's better not to break it so easily. Although Master's words sounded a little incomprehensible, it didn't affect her understanding. Master was always able to say things that were unexpected but also very reasonable. Jasper was full of admiration. At this time, the two had almost reached the King of England's Fu. From afar, they saw the person sitting on the back of a horse and preparing to dismount. Chu Qingyan was excited and immediately dashed over. Bai Yu, who was standing at the side, couldn't even stop him before he flew past her. Master, your face. Tisk, Master still wanted people to keep this trip a secret. Now, she was afraid that she would be exposed. Chapter 1036. Her voice reached him before she arrived. Along the way, Xiao Su had been thinking about something. When he heard this, he subconsciously turned his head. The coldness on his face and the indifference in his eyes hadn't faded yet. Just like that, they fell into the eyes of the people who were wildly running over in joy. Chu Qingyan's footsteps paused, but she quickly pounced in front of him again. Big Ice Cube, I'm back. She smiled with narrowed eyes. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows slightly as he looked at her face full of pockmarks. He had to admit that she was extremely ugly. But that was not what he cared about. Aren't you going to explain your makeup? Chu Qingyan widened her eyes as she touched her face. Oh no, she had forgotten to destroy the evidence before returning home. This time, the big ice cube would definitely be suspicious. She blinked and immediately acted obedient in front of him. Big Ice Cube, don't you think that dressing up like this is very unique? No one will notice you, right? Is that so? The person in front of him was winking at him with a face full of pockmarks. Although he could see that she was guilty, he did not want to expose her at this time. And his gloomy mood just now had disappeared because of her mischief. He could not help but smile as he shook his head. I think it's more eye-catching this way. He suddenly had the mood to tease her. Chu Qingyan was stunned. It couldn't be more eye-catching? Then wouldn't the matter of her going to Ingchun court be exposed? What should she do? She had to think of an excuse. Seeing her conflicted expression, Xiao Su did not tease her anymore. He handed the reins in his hands to the servant and led her into the residence. Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief. But why did the big ice cube let her off so easily? This didn't make sense. She quickly followed beside him. Thinking of his disappointed look just now, she lowered her head and rolled her eyes. Then she held his hand, tilted her head and smiled as she asked, "Big ice cube, what do you want to eat for dinner?" "Anything. What if I'm the one cooking?" She persisted in asking. Xiao Su turned to look at her. "I'll eat whatever you cook." So unromantic. Chu Qingyan let go of his hand and snorted softly. She had made a meal for him out of goodwill, but he was so perfunctory. Xiao Su smiled and raised his eyebrows. "Are you competing with me?" She looked up at him and sneered. "What? I can't?" "Sure, I like your cooking." Xiao Su smiled lightly. It was only then that Chu Qingyan felt more at ease. Seeing that Jiang Yi was no longer as gloomy as before, she felt a little more at ease. At that moment, they arrived at their courtyard. Chu Qingyan turned around and wanted to go into the room to change her clothes before heading to the kitchen to cook. Suddenly, he was called by the big ice block. She nodded again. The confusion in his eyes deepened. "Why don't you ask me what the result is?" Chu Qingyan smiled faintly and looked at him. "Big ice cube, if there's a result, you will tell me. But I don't need to ask to know the result." Xiao Su looked at her deeply. "Big ice cube, no matter what the result is, whether it's a tragedy or a happy ending for the family, I'm willing to bear it with you." She tilted her head and said seriously. Xiao Su felt a warm current in his chest. He reached out to stroke her head, his eyes full of thoughts. "Ian, thank you. What's our relationship? You should be scolded for treating me like an outsider." She stuck out her tongue at him. Xiao Su pinched her face, then remembered the truth of the matter. He didn't want to hide it from her, so he said in a low voice, "Imperial Mother used your parents' safety as a threat to prevent us from leaving the capital. I didn't protect them well." Chu Qingyan was stunned. "You're saying that your Imperial Mother held my parents hostage?" Xiao Su nodded in acknowledgement. She clenched her fists, her expression extremely ugly. "How could it be like this? My parents are innocent." Xiao Su reached out to pull her into his embrace, blaming himself. "Don't worry, I will send them to you safely. Don't worry." She wrapped her arms around his waist, her expression powerless and sorrowful. "Big Ice Cube, I believe that your Imperial Mother won't harm my parents. After all, she needs this bargaining chip to prevent you from leaving the capital. I'm not worried about this, but my heart aches for you. It's fine." Xiao Su gently patted her shoulder, comforting her in a low voice. After hugging each other in silence for a while, Chu Qingyan finally pushed him away as if nothing had happened. "All right, I'll go and change my clothes to cook. You should go and rest first. Later, you can eat the dishes that I'll personally cook." After confirming that she was really fine, Xiao Su finally let go of her. When Chu Qingyan returned to her room, she turned around and leaned against the door. Her eyes were moist, and her hands were on the door, her expression sorrowful. Not only because her parents were in Empress Liang's hands, but also because of Big Ice Cube. There were no lack of parents in the world, but she had never seen parents like this. Even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its cubs. Why couldn't she let Big Ice Cube go? Although Big Ice Cube didn't say anything, from the moment she saw him before entering the door, she knew that those people were making things difficult for Big Ice Cube again. Could it be that the happiness of children couldn't compare to that high and mighty position? She wiped her tears. She couldn't let Big Ice Cube find out. Crying was the most cowardly behavior. She had to get through this difficult situation with Big Ice Cube. With this thought, she immediately changed her clothes, washed her face, and opened the door. Once again, she was a bright and cheerful girl. Prince Yi's estate. Xiao Ho leaned against the armchair, his expression wanton. Find out why fourth prince didn't attend the celebration banquet. The person standing in front of him was called Xie Fei. He was Xiao Ho's newest hidden guard, and was in charge of reporting to him. Xie Fei bowed and said, "The information we investigated wasn't specific. I heard that fourth prince was grounded by consort Yu because he stayed too long at the King of England's estate on the day of the return of the army. Fourth prince was supposed to attend the palace banquet, but for some reason, consort Yu went to fourth prince's palace. The two seemed to have quarreled. We didn't find out the exact reason, but from the palace maids, fourth prince seemed to have mentioned the name of his Royal Highness fiancé, Chu Qingyan. At this point, Xiao asked, "Then, Your Highness, do we still need to continue investigating?" Xiao Ho gradually revealed a look of understanding while listening to his subordinate's report. He waved his hand and said, "There's no need to investigate anymore. This prince already knows the reason." Xiao looked at him in confusion. This prince's fourth imperial brother is truly infatuated. 4 years ago, he developed feelings for Chu Qingyan. This prince thought that he was just a child, but now it seems that this prince has to look at him in a new light. However, this just so happens to be a great help to this prince. Xiao Ho was a meticulous thinker. In a few blinks of an eye, he had unfolded the pros and cons of this matter and laid out the stepping stones for his plan. Beauty is a source of trouble, and brothers fight against each other. This is a big show. How can this prince not participate? Xiao Ho stood up with a smile. It seems that this prince should return to the palace for a walk. Chapter 1037. When Xiao Ho appeared in front of Xiao Su's palace, Xiang Yu, his personal bodyguard, came up to greet him. "Your Highness Prince Yi, His Highness is already waiting for you inside. This way, please." Xiao Ho covered his mouth with a handkerchief and coughed lightly. He didn't answer and could only nod to show that he understood. As Xiao Ho walked in front, Xiang Yu looked at his back and didn't understand why the third prince, who had never stepped out of the house, suddenly sent someone to pass on a message that he wanted to visit his master. Although she didn't understand, Xiang Yu still scrupulously followed her duty. As soon as Xiao Ho entered the inner hall, he saw Xiao Ran pacing back and forth anxiously. He couldn't help but smile. It seemed that Xiao Ran's state of mind was very unstable and had become a trapped beast. Xiao Ho could make good use of him. Hearing the sound, Xiao Ran immediately turned around. When he saw his third imperial brother, Xiao Ran immediately went up to him. "Third imperial brother, you're here? I heard that you didn't attend the palace banquet a few days ago because you weren't feeling well. I was just about to visit you. Are you feeling better now?" Normally, Xiao Ran would occasionally visit Prince Yi's estate. However, because the imperial physician said that his third imperial brother's illness was sometimes good and sometimes bad, he needed to rest. Therefore, he didn't stay for more than half an hour each time. Xiao Ho smiled. "I'm much better." During this time, the imperial physician found a lot of good herbs. After I ate them, I felt more energetic than before. So when I heard that you weren't feeling well these days, I wanted to come and see you. Hearing this, Xiao Ran's expression became slightly bitter. He wasn't feeling unwell. It was Imperial Mother who forbade him from leaving the palace. However, how could he mention this to his third imperial brother? It was too embarrassing. Xiao Ho saw through his thoughts. After coughing a few times, he asked, "I saw you frowning as soon as I came in. Is there something on your mind?" Xiao Ran had just opened his mouth when he pursed his lips, turned his head to the side, and sighed. "Third imperial brother, I'm fine. It's just that I've been bored out of my mind these past few days." Xiao Ho smiled and said with a gentle expression, "Fourth brother, you can tell your third brother what's on your mind. Your third brother doesn't have many years left to live. What can I do for you brothers? Take advantage of these days when I'm still healthy. Otherwise, when I leave in the future, I will have regrets in my heart." Hearing this, Xiao Ran's eyes lit up. "Third imperial brother, what are you talking about? You're so young and so outstanding. You'll definitely live a long life." Looking at his inexperienced fourth brother, Xiao Ho shook his head in his heart. With this little ability, he was not qualified to be his opponent. He was still too inexperienced. He shook his head and smiled. "I know my own body. You don't have to comfort me." Hearing these words, Xiao Ran's heart was very sour. He couldn't bear to hide it from him, so he poured out his troubles these past few days to him. In reality, he had kept it in his heart for too long. He also wanted to find someone to talk to, but the people around him were either eunuchs or palace maids. None of them were trustworthy. And because of his identity and his imperial mother's interference in making friends, he still didn't have a true friend. Now that Xiao Ho had appeared, it was like a straw reaching out to him, who was about to drown. Third imperial brother, you may not believe it, and you may be shocked. But it's all true. I like a girl, but my imperial mother is very opposed. Xiao Ho couldn't help but smile. What's there to be shocked about? At your age, liking a girl is very normal. If your imperial mother is opposed, then it means that her status is not good enough for you. She can't be your first consort, but you can take her into the palace and give her the title of secondary consort. Xiao Ran smiled bitterly. If it's like this, then it's simple. It's just that her status is a bit special. Although Xiao Ho already knew who it was, he still showed an expression of curiosity. Which noble young miss is it in the capital? Xiao Ran gathered his courage and poured out all his secrets. She's not from a noble family, but she's already betrothed to someone. You also know this person. It's the eldest brother. Xiao Ho cooperated and expressed his shock. It's actually Miss Chu. Fourth brother, you're not joking, right? Xiao Ran smiled bitterly again. I knew you would say this, but how can I treat this kind of thing as a joke? Third imperial brother, what do you think I should do? Imperial mother not agreeing is one thing, but there's still imperial father's personally written imperial edict between us. Do you really like that, Miss Chu? Xiao Ho asked. Xiao Ran nodded seriously. We've known each other for half a year, and we've missed each other for 4 years. There's not a moment when I don't want her to be in a place where I can see her. Xiao Ho was a bit surprised. He didn't expect this fourth brother of his to be so smart. It was one thing if he usually didn't understand, but when he did, it was simply amazing. I don't have any good ideas about this matter, but I do have a suggestion. However, this matter can't be done by you alone. Miss Chu has to be interested in you. Xiao Ran's eyes lit up. I feel that Qing Yan and eldest brother are so many years apart. Qing Yan is active, while eldest brother is quiet. There's definitely not much to talk about between the two of them. Moreover, I know that when the imperial edict was issued, eldest brother was completely unaware of it. I understand eldest brother. He's never liked others forcing him to do anything. He has a responsibility for Qing Yan, but he has no feelings for her. Therefore, I don't want to see Qing Yan be unhappy for the rest of her life, and I also don't want eldest brother to force himself. The corners of Xiao Ho's eyes twitched. Sure enough, love was blind. It could make a person lose their normal judgment. As far as he knew, Xiao Su's weakness right now was none other than his most cherished fiancée. However, it was precisely because of this that he could use Xiao Ran as a chess piece. Fourth brother, if it's really as you say, then it's best for the two of them to separate. Xiao Ran seemed to have received confirmation, and a smile appeared on his face. Third imperial brother, do you also think so? Xiao Ho nodded. Then what was third imperial brother's suggestion just now? He asked impatiently. Actually, you said that there were obstacles from consort you and the bestowment of marriage. I believe that these are not the most important things. The most important thing is that you and Miss Chu's hearts are connected. As long as you can persuade Miss Chu to take the initiative to talk to eldest brother about this matter, based on how much eldest brother dotes on you, he will definitely take the initiative to ask imperial father to annul the engagement. Xiao Ho guided him patiently. Is this okay? Qing Yan doesn't seem to know my feelings. Xiao Ran scratched his head, a little embarrassed. Xiao Ho curled his lips. This will all depend on your own efforts. If you can win Miss Chu's heart, then everything will be fine. Xiao Ran nodded heavily and reached out to hold his hand. He said gratefully, Third imperial brother, it's all thanks to you. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what to do. I've been locking myself up in the palace all day, running around like a headless fly. If everything goes well, I will definitely thank you properly in the future. Xiao Ho smiled affectionately. Do we still need to be so courteous between us brothers? Xiao Ran giggled foolishly. When they left the palace, Xiao Ho looked at the high walls and shook his head. If the country was handed over to this idiot, then the country would really be doomed. Chapter 1038. The news that Lord and Wang Fei were going to continue to stay in Jingdou spread through the entire Wang Fu like it had wings. This day, Huang Yi was holding a spatula in the kitchen. She looked at Hong Yi, who was washing ginseng beside her, and couldn't help but cross her arms. She asked with a smile, "Today, you're making tonics for Lord again?" Hong Yi smiled when she heard this. Lord went to the battlefield this time and was tired. Now that I'm in the Fu, I can use this chance to make up for Lord. If he leaves Jingdou in the future, we won't be able to see each other. Huang Yi nodded, but I heard that His Highness seems to be staying in the Wang Fu for a long time. A smug look flashed through Hong Yi's eyes. She was the one who had secretly added fuel to the fire. If she hadn't gone to Gaomi, Lord would have left long ago. At this time, Huang Yi seemed to have thought of something, and her voice was full of admiration. "Hong Yi, have you found that Wang Fei is becoming more and more beautiful? Just this morning, I saw that she was just casually wearing a piece of clothing that is popular in Jingdou right now. She didn't wear any jewelry, but she was better than many noble misses. As the saying goes, clothes make the person. I feel that no matter what clothing is worn on little Wang Fei, it will look good. It has become the saying that clothes make the person." As she spoke, Huang Yi exclaimed, "Hong Yi, the water is coming out." Hong Yi finally stopped adding water in a flurry and moved the basin away. Huang Yi looked in puzzlement at her. "Hong Yi, these days, why do I feel that you seem to be absent-minded? Do you have something on your mind?" Hong Yi forced a smile and shook her head. She hurriedly put away the things in her hands. But when she lowered her head, she thought of something and had a plan. She pretended to mention it carelessly. "Huang Yi, do you know that Lord revealed before that he was going to give to us?" When these words came out, Huang Yi stilled and a blush quickly rose to her face. "Why are you mentioning this? It's embarrassing. Men should marry when they are of age, and women should marry when they are of age. What is there to be embarrassed about? But I didn't think that after we entered the Fu together for so many years, I have never thought of leaving the Wang Fu. What about you?" Hong Yi's gaze seemed to look at Huang Yi as she observed her expression. Hearing this, Huang Yi shook her head. "When I entered the Fu, I wanted to follow Lord and repay him for saving my life, so I will stay in the Wang Fu for the rest of my life." "It seems like your thoughts are the same as mine. I thought that Wang Yi would take us in forever, but I didn't think that because of Wang Fei." Hong immediately stopped speaking. Huang Yi asked curiously, "What's wrong with Wang Fei? Does this matter have anything to do with her?" Hong Yi was in a difficult position, as if it was difficult for her to speak. "I can only tell you these words. The reason why His Highness wanted us to leave was to reassure Her Highness. After all, we are already of age and our looks and abilities are not bad. His Highness is probably worried." Hong Yi's words made Huang Yi react instantly. She frowned, her expression strange as though she had been dealt a blow. How can Wang Fei think that? Hong Yi saw that she had succeeded in instigating discord. She sighed softly and walked out with the things she had washed. Huang Yi watched as Hong Yi's figure disappeared into the kitchen. Her brows relaxed, and she slowly put away the strange look on her face. She curled her lips slightly. This Hong Yi thought that she was simple-minded and all brawn and no brains. She wanted to use her as a tool? She was too naive. A servant came in. Huang Yi's lips flattened and she became that pure and cute girl who cooked. In the study of the Wang Fu, Chu Qingyan was sitting behind her desk, deep in thought. Because the big ice cube had gone to the military camp, she was the only one who could make decisions in the Wang Fu. She was worried that Empress Liang had taken her parents hostage. She had asked Water Spirit to help her investigate and see if she could find out where her parents were. However, she did not expect that just as she was busy with this matter, White Tiger, the housekeeper, brought the account book over and asked her to check it. Chu Qingyan thought that this was part of her job, so she agreed. However, when she saw him ordering people to bring in all the account books of the past few years, her eyes almost fell out of their sockets. When she started to examine them, Hong Yi came in with the stewards of the inner courtyard. "What is it?" Chu Qingyan had a bad premonition. Hong Yi gave her a polite bow with a faint smile. Then she introduced the stewards behind her one by one before saying to her, "Princess consort, it's the end of the month again and there are many things in the inner courtyard that need to be taken care of. In the past, it was Hong Yi who took care of these matters, but now that Princess consort is back, Hong Yi will give these matters back to Princess consort. There are many things that the stewards can't decide on and need you to make a decision." Hong Yi pushed them aside, and the stewards swarmed forward, all talking at once about their own matters. "Princess consort, it's the middle of summer and we don't have enough ice in the palace. Should we buy some?" "Princess consort, it's been a long time since our palace gave out a reward. Do you think we should increase it this time?" "I was the one who said it first. You can all go to the side." "Princess consort, I heard that there is a new batch of good cloth in the city. Do you want to buy some back?" "I was the one who said it first. I was the one who said it first." There were so many people and they were all talking. Other people said that a woman had 500 ducks, but she had thousands of ducks quacking in her ears. "What are you all doing? Are you all quarreling? Be quiet for the princess consort." At this time, Jasper's voice on the side shocked everyone. Jasper had a strong personality and everyone was scared by her roar. But when they came back to their senses, they looked at her with disdain. She was just a little girl, what was there to show off about? Chu Qingyan coldly watched from the side, not missing anyone's expression. Finally her eyes fell onto Hong Yi and she caught a trace of schadenfreude on her face. Chu Qingyan instantly understood. At this time, her expression did not change as her eyes scanned the stewards. They were all tall and rough and had been raised by the Wang Fu until their faces were oily. She secretly remembered them in her heart. The stewards thought that this princess consort was young and easy to bully. They had been fearless just now, but under her gaze, their legs trembled. Why was it that this princess consort looked as delicate as a flower vase, but her body exuded an intimidating aura that made them gradually quiet down and not dare to speak again? "I know about your matters. You can leave first. When you calm down your restless emotions, come find me in the afternoon." Chu Qingyan finished speaking and then lowered her head, not looking at them again. The stewards wanted to say something, but they were suppressed by Hong Yi's gaze. So the group left. When the room became quiet again, Chu Qingyan threw down the brush. Her hands were clasped under her chin as her eyes moved unpredictably. Jasper had been worried that her mistress would be bullied, but seeing her like this, she knew that she was starting to scheme against people and her heart calmed down. Chapter 1039. Chu Qingyan pondered for a moment. In the end, she slowly put down her hands and leaned against the back of the chair. She said to Jasper, "Go and call Su Ba and the others over. I have something to tell them." Although Jasper didn't know what her master wanted to do, she immediately did as she was told. Soon, Su Ba and the others came over. "Master, what are your orders?" Su Ba and the others lined up in a row and bowed slightly. Chu Qingyan pushed the account books in her hands in front of them and said with a smile, "Do you still remember the calculations I taught you before? Come, help me check the accounts." Su Ba and the others agreed without objection. Su Jiao said with some annoyance, "This white commander actually dares to make things difficult for you. He must have eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall." Chu Qingyan chuckled with a hint of coldness. "These people want to see me make a fool of myself and make things difficult for me. They don't even know how much they are worth. Don't worry, I won't let them off so easily." Su Jiao and the others nodded heavily. Chu Qingyan folded the paper in her hand and handed it to Jasper. "Send someone to send this to Water Spirit. I want her to help me investigate the details of the internal and external stewards of the prince's mansion in recent years. What they have done in the past few years and who they have befriended. I don't believe that their hands are clean after all these years without the master and mistress of the mansion." Su Ba couldn't help but ask, "Master, are you planning to make a move?" Chu Qingyan chuckled. "On the first day in the capital, they gave me a show of strength. I thought that we would be leaving soon, so I turned a blind eye and didn't care about these trivial matters. But we will still be in the capital for a short time. They sent themselves to my door and still dared to squeeze me. They really don't know what's good for them. Master, what do you think they will gain by doing this?" Su Ba asked in confusion. Su Ba heard this and the corners of his mouth twitched. What else can they gain? They just want Master to back off and not interfere in the affairs of the mansion in the future. Bastard, you're really good at scheming. Everyone in the room was boiling. Chu Qingyan raised her hand to silence them. Then she said unhurriedly, "Don't worry. How can your master be bullied so easily? All right, all of you go and do your work. Find the problem with these accounts as soon as possible. I don't believe that they didn't falsify the accounts." Yes. Once the master gave the order, everyone immediately started working in full swing. Jasper immediately went out. The account books, brushes, and ink flew all over the place. Thus, the whole morning passed in such a busy manner. Lunchtime. Xiao Su returned from the military camp and ate at the same table as her. Xiao Su picked up a piece of vegetable and put it in her bowl. He went straight to the point. "I heard that they made things difficult for you?" Chu Qingyan paused her chopsticks and winked at him. "You're quite well informed, aren't you? I thought that after you went to the military camp, you wouldn't pay attention to the matters in the residence. Don't talk nonsense with me. What do you plan to do? Do you need me to make a move?" When he heard Huo Ling's report in the military camp today, he had the thought of throwing these people out. Xiao Su's words warmed her heart. The feeling of having someone standing behind her and supporting her was different. She continued to eat and said with a face full of confidence, "There's no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. You don't have to worry, I can handle it. I can even take down those stubborn people in southern Song, not to mention these people who don't have good eyesight." Not only did they want her to retreat in the face of difficulties and not interfere with the matters in the residence, they also wanted to continue devouring the treasury in the residence. They were simply dreaming. "It looks like you already have an idea?" Xiao Su's gaze revealed admiration. Chu Qingyan laughed and mysteriously said, "I'll keep it a secret for now. As long as you don't feel bad for me touching your people, I'll start making a bold and decisive move." Xiao Su curled his lips. "Don't worry and boldly do it. I need you to loosen the soil in this area. So you want to use my hands to tidy up your residence?" Huh? Chu Qingyan gave him a sidelong glance. Xiao Su smiled. He gave her more food before saying, "You said something wrong." "What is it?" She did not understand. "This isn't just my residence, it's also yours." Her eyes lit up. "That's right, what's yours is mine. I almost forgot. Then I'll make a big fuss at home. Let's say this first, you have to stand on my side." If she could pull the big ice cube to her side from the start, then everything would be easy to handle. Xiao Su had no way to deal with her mischievous look. "I won't drag you down." This time, she was satisfied and buried her head in eating. There was a way for husband and wife to get along. When dealing with family matters, if your other half could stand by your side and become your backing, then you would be able to do twice the work with half the effort. After eating, Chu Qingyan returned to the study. Jasper was already waiting inside. "Speak, why did the stewards of the inner courtyard suddenly move out?" She had sent Jasper to investigate this matter this morning. It seemed like there was already a result. Jasper stepped forward and said, "Master, you guessed correctly. It was Hong Yi who instigated this. She wanted to make these stewards make things difficult for you, but this subordinate doesn't understand her intentions." "It really was her," Chu Qingyan muttered softly. When she heard the latter half of Jasper's words, she scoffed lightly, "It's just an ugly duckling who wants to turn into a swan. It's a pity that she found the wrong person. She wants to use this matter to let the servants in the residence know that I'm just a useless idiot. She's looking down on me too much. Back then, I personally tidied up the inner courtyard. Everything was in order from top to bottom. Right now, she wants to compete with me to see whose methods are better. She clearly wants to climb over my head." It seemed like what Big Ice Cube said last time made her a little impatient, so she dared to make such a move. However, she still had some doubts in her heart. Hong Yi's character was good at enduring silently. Why did she suddenly change her character and become so fearless? But now, no matter why Hong Yi became like this, she would not let them off easily. It was also time to show her power. Before she could warm the chair, there was a knock on the door. She exchanged a look with Jasper, and Jasper went to open the door. Thus, Hong Yi led the people in majestically. Seeing that everyone was about to start talking after bowing, Chu Qingyan raised her hand. Her aura shook, and everyone involuntarily shut their mouths. If you have a question, ask it one by one. There's no need to rush. We're having a discussion, not buying groceries at the market. Show some manners as a steward of a noble family. Don't let others look down on you. When the stewards heard this, no matter how unwilling they were, they had to listen to her for the sake of their dignity. Alright, let's start with Steward Wang on the left. First, accept yourself. Name, responsibility, and the current question. Be orderly and logical. I believe that you are all experienced stewards. You can do this request, right? Once this tall hat was put on, everyone immediately became well-behaved. Chu Qingyan said this casually. Hong Yi, who was standing at the side, instinctively looked at her. For some reason, she felt that the princess consort today seemed a little different from usual. Chu Qingyan felt the stares from the side and sneered. Hong Yi, watch carefully. Watch how I drag you down step by step. Chapter 1040. Let's begin. Chu Qingyan ordered nonchalantly. She didn't know if it was Chu Qingyan's unpredictable appearance that intimidated everyone. No one dared to play any tricks and obediently began to report. Wang Fei, the weather is getting hotter and hotter. There isn't enough ice. Should we buy more? Wang Ma was the first to speak. Her tone was a bit unfriendly, as if she didn't agree, she didn't know how to manage the inner courtyard. Chu Qingyan's finger lightly tapped on the table. Her eyes indifferently looked at Wang Ma. This ice is mainly stored in which rooms? How much does it cost per day? What's the price outside? Wang Ma was already prepared. She replied, it's mainly placed in the prince and princess consort's rooms, as well as the study room and the living room, where the masters often go. Every day, 3 basins of ice will be used alternately, which costs about 3 taels of silver per room. In total, it costs almost 100 taels a month. 100 taels? Chu Qingyan slightly narrowed her eyes. Wang Ma, how come I heard that the ice outside isn't worth this price? At most, it's only 50 taels a month. Is the quality of the ice you bought better? Is it more resistant to heat? Wang Ma's forehead was covered in a layer of cold sweat. How did Wang Fei know this? Didn't she just return to the capital? And she didn't look very old. How come she was more shrewd than she thought? Wang Fei doesn't know. People have different grades. This thing also has good and bad. In order for Lord and Wang Fei to live comfortably, this old servant bought it at this price. Wang Ma didn't dare to wipe her sweat. She reluctantly made up a reason. Chu Qingyan gently smiled. Wang Ma has been in the Wang Fu for 6 or 7 years. I believe that you won't do something like buying low and cheating high. Wang Fei was actually so clear about her background. The sweat on Wang Ma's forehead became denser. She nodded obediently. But I remember that there is an ice cellar in the manor. Hasn't it been used for so many years? When Chu Qingyan said this, she looked at Hong Yi. Hong Yi was still immersed in the shock that Chu Qingyan had just given her. Feeling her gaze, she immediately adjusted her emotions and looked at Chu Qingyan. Smiling, she said, because the 2 masters have not been in the Fu in recent years, the ice cellar is rarely used. So much so that it has been abandoned. Chu Qingyan was satisfied with this explanation. She said unhurriedly, even though our Wang Fu doesn't lack money, we can't be extravagant. How about this, Wang Ma, these 2 days, have someone clean up the ice cellar and use it again. It's self-sufficient and can reduce the Fu's expenses. Although Wang Ma was a little unwilling to take advantage of this matter to make a profit, she could only agree at this time. The princess did not pursue the matter further, which was already the greatest tolerance for her. Saving her life was more important. Thus, Wang Ma retreated, and another steward came forward to report. Because of Wang Ma's example, no one dared to deliberately make things difficult. Who had clean hands? At this time, everyone was in danger and regretted coming to cause trouble, afraid that they would be exposed. Thus, one by one, they were dealt with smoothly and swiftly. Everyone sighed in relief and sighed. Don't underestimate the princess just because she was young. She was slippery and shrewd in everything. They had to be more honest in the future and be careful not to be caught red-handed. After the matter was taken care of, Hong Yi was shocked at Chu Qingyan's methods, but she felt even more resentment towards her. She hadn't thought that her plan today would not only fail, but also help her establish her prestige in the inner yard. So hateful. She didn't want to stay any longer and prepared to leave with the stewards with a fake smile. But at this time, Chu Qingyan spoke. Hong Yi, don't be in a hurry to leave. I still have matters to attend to. Hong Yi had a bad feeling. She instinctively felt that she couldn't stay. Otherwise, something that she could not accept would happen. Wang Fei, can I come find you later? There are still some matters that need to be taken care of in the inner yard, Hong Yi replied with a smile. She was proper and generous, and no one could find fault with her. But Chu Qingyan didn't fall for it. She also returned a smile. That's what I want to talk about. Hong Yi was slightly puzzled. The other people looked in puzzlement at the two, not knowing what Wang Fei was planning. Chu Qingyan crossed her hands on the table and said to Hong Yi with a serious and regretful expression, I know that you have stayed in the Wang Fu for at least a decade and spent a lot of effort. I have high hopes for you, but what I have seen and heard in the Wang Fu in this period of time has made me disappointed in you. You have already lost the ability to handle matters as the head Yahuan of the inner yard. I think that it is because there are too many people in the Fu and you are too busy. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many stewards coming to find me today. Hong Yi went from her initial shock to her present calmness. Then Wang Fei's meaning is? At this time, Jasper walked in with Qing Yi. Qing Yi saw so many people and was slightly confused, but she still bowed to Wang Fei. Chu Qingyan saw them come and turned to say to Hong Yi, So, I regret to inform you that all the matters you have on hand will be taken over by Qing Yi. When you recover your energy, I will make new arrangements for you. Everyone present, other than Chu Qingyan and Jasper, looked back and forth between Hong Yi and Qing Yi in shock. After exiting the study, Qing Yi followed behind Hong Yi, her face still puzzled by the change. At this time, Hong Yi had already stopped and turned back to say to Qing Yi with a normal expression, Later, I will hand over the accounts to you. If you have any questions in the future, feel free to ask me. Qing Yi nodded, then watched as Hong Yi smiled at her and left. When she reached a place where she wasn't looking, Hong Yi stopped in her tracks. With one hand on the pillar, her expression was extremely ugly. What a good Chu Qingyan, to actually scheme against me like this. Good. Since you don't let me have an easy time, I won't let you have an easy time either. Just wait and see. After venting, Hong Yi retracted the sinister expression on her face and resumed her gentle and virtuous appearance, leisurely walking forward. Only Chu Qingyan and Jasper were left in the study. Master, this move of yours is really powerful. Jasper spared no effort in praising. Chu Qingyan gave a gentle smile. This is enough to make you admire me. Just wait, there will be a good show to watch later. As she said that, White Tiger walked in from outside. Princess Consort, you were looking for this old servant? That's right, it's about the accounts. Chu Qingyan casually pointed at the accounts on the table. White Tiger's brows jumped up. You finished looking through them? That's impossible. That's right, but right now I need you to call all the managers over. I have something to look for them for. Chu Qingyan's expression was normal. Although White Tiger didn't know what she wanted to do, he still agreed. He didn't believe that she could finish looking through all the accounts in a short day. After a while, those managers were all brought over by White Tiger. They lazily gave a bow to Chu Qingyan. But before they could stand firm, a pile of books came crashing down on them. Pitiful cries rang out. Chapter 1041. Although these account books didn't have much weight, but Chu Qingyan used a little bit of skill to smash these people, making them cry out in pain for a long time. Chu Qingyan sat coldly in the midst of their wailing and howling, with an unfathomable look on her face. White Tiger was completely caught off guard by this unforeseen event, and by the time he regained his senses, these stewards had already been smashed until they were dizzy and disoriented. He looked angrily at Chu Qingyan. Princess Consort, what are you doing? indiscriminately getting angry at the stewards. Even if the Lord was here, I'm afraid he wouldn't tolerate your actions. Once these words were said, everyone glared angrily at Chu Qingyan, as if they wanted to swallow her whole. But what was unexpected was that the person who smashed these people's faces was calm and unperturbed. One couldn't tell at all that she was the one who had hit them earlier. Everyone couldn't help but feel apprehensive. What was this princess consort trying to do? Chu Qingyan coolly shot a glance at everyone and unhurriedly opened her mouth. You all seem to be very dissatisfied with my actions? No one responded, but the cold and angry smile on their faces silently answered her words. Chu Qingyan raised her hand to support her chin. The corners of her mouth held a smile, but the bottom of her eyes was ice cold. The account books on the floor. If you all look carefully at the account books that you made, then you will know the reason why you were beaten. Everyone was stunned at first, then they looked at each other. Although they were unwilling, but the person in front of them was the master of this manner, so they had no choice but to obey. Moreover, they wanted to see what kind of tricks this princess consort could come up with. So everyone bent down, found their own account books and flipped through them. Originally they had a relaxed look of watching a good show, but when they saw the contents inside, each of their faces were full of brilliance, as if a dye vat had been knocked over. Looking at their trembling hands, Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows and smiled faintly. How is it? Do you all have anything to say about the account books that you made? After all, these people were cunning. They had become old foxes in Prince Yu's mansion. Although they were flustered by the numbers circled in the account book, they soon calmed down. The princess only saw the problem in the account book. In fact, it was not easy to investigate. Unless they were willing to cooperate, it was impossible for the princess to find out anything. Princess consort, the account books were originally like this. Maybe you don't usually come into contact with these things, so you feel that there is a problem. One of them smiled as he said. Another one of them then, Princess consort, do you want this old servant to explain it to you? Chu Qingyan gave a low laugh. Princess consort, you all don't give up until the end. Everyone did not understand the meaning of her words. Their hearts were beating like drums. Could it be that Wang Fei still had some tricks up her sleeve? Just thinking about it made their legs go soft. White Tiger saw that everyone's momentum had been suppressed and he felt a little unhappy. But he understood better than the others that Princess Consort was not muddle-headed when it came to checking the accounts. Moreover, the circled in the account books were indeed problematic. He did not expect that these people under him would be so daring. Not only did they make a fake account, the fake account books were full of mistakes. They really treated Princess Consort like a child, which was why they were caught off guard. Underestimating the enemy was a great taboo. Chu Qingyan swept a glance at the crowd and gave a low laugh. Then her gaze slowly fell on one of them. Steward Li, I heard that your mother's uncle recently bought a residence and you even lent him a few hundred taels of silver. Your relationship is pretty good. Steward Li's legs trembled and he barely managed to stand. How did Princess Consort know? He was afraid that she would ask him where the silver came from. So his lips turned white and he did not dare to say anything. Chu Qingyan saw him like this and did not continue. She turned to look at another steward. Steward Chen, I heard that your foreign has been a frequent visitor to Ling Lang Pavilion this year. She is very fashionable and knows how to dress. This is a good thing. It is your good fortune. Fine sweat appeared on Steward Chen's forehead. He laughed and laughed. If my wife knew that Princess Consort was praising her like this, she would be so happy she wouldn't be able to sleep. Chu Qingyan smiled coldly as she casually named a few more housekeepers. It was as if she was chatting casually, but every word she said was like a stab at the dirty secrets in their hearts. All of them were trembling in fear. Those who were named felt as if they were standing on pins and needles, while those who were not were scared witless. They were afraid that they would be next. This kind of hanging people and not giving them a quick punishment made them feel very uncomfortable. Seeing that the desired effect had been achieved, Chu Qingyan changed into a more comfortable position. Then she looked at everyone with a smile that hit a knife. After exchanging greetings with everyone, I'm a bit tired. Then Princess Consort can go rest first. We'll go back first. Seeing this, the stewards immediately scrambled to say. They had to leave this troublesome place first. Chu Qingyan smiled. Why are you in such a rush? We haven't finished talking about the important matters. Everyone swallowed with difficulty. Please speak. At this time, they didn't have the arrogance they had when they first arrived. Each of them had been beaten back to their original selves. They wanted to curry favor with this master. Chu Qingyan's smile faded slightly. Her gaze was as sharp as a knife. This sudden change in aura pressed down on everyone's shoulders. What needs to be said, I've already said. The rest is up to you. 3 days later, I want you to put the real account in front of me. Moreover, I want to see at least 2/3 of the money that we missed and don't know where it went. Otherwise, she dragged out the last syllable and gave a low laugh. She pierced the hearts of some people present. Don't think about running away. How many people do you have? How much property you have? I know it all like the back of my hand. So if you have time to play tricks with me, why don't you think about how to complete the task that I mentioned? All right, you can leave. Everyone was like stray dogs. They lowered their heads and left the study. Each of them had a long face. They originally thought that they were a soft persimmon, but now they kicked an iron plate. It was simply a sin. After everyone left, Chu Qingyan rubbed her brows and leaned back in her chair with a tired expression. Today, she had fought 2 battles in a row. It was really a bit tiring. Jasper timely handed over a cup of soup. Chu Qingyan took a few sips and recovered a lot of energy. Master, do you think that these people will patch up all the loopholes? Jasper asked. Chu Qingyan held her forehead and looked at her from the corner of her eyes. Their lives are in my hands. I'm not afraid that they won't hand it over. If they don't take the initiative to hand it over, I don't mind helping them. Jasper shook her head and sighed. Master, as your opponent, they have to be aware of the fact that they lose. This is called, those who are unjust are doomed to destruction. If they could scrupulously abide by their duties and not be so ambitious, I wouldn't care about them at all. But they still have delusions of bullying me. In order to protect His Highness's property, I won't let them off easily. Jasper nodded to show that she understood. At this time, Xiao pushed open the door and ran in. Chu Qingyan was a bit unhappy that she barged in without knocking, but after hearing her words, she was a bit surprised. Master, His Highness the 4th Prince wants to see you. He's already in the living room. Chapter 1042. Xiao ran? After not seeing him for a few days, Chu Qingyan missed him a bit, so she stood up. Let's go to the guest hall. When she entered the hall, Xiao Ran came up to her. Qingyan, we haven't seen each other for a few days. Why haven't you come to the palace to play with me? Is it because I haven't left the palace, so we won't be able to see each other for a long time? His tone carried a bit of grievance. When Chu Qingyan heard his complaint, she couldn't help but laugh. Please, what's so fun about the Imperial Palace? It's not as lively as the outside. That's right, why didn't you appear at the palace banquet last time? You're so playful it doesn't suit your personality. Xiao Ran didn't dare to tell her the truth and say that it was because of her that his mother had grounded him. He rubbed his nose and gave an evasive smile. Isn't it because I ate too much plum soup yesterday and wasn't feeling well? Otherwise, why would I be absent from such a lively occasion? That's true. You have to pay attention to your diet in the future. Don't eat too much cold even when the weather is hot, so you don't suffer. Chu Qingyan casually said. However, when these words fell into Xiao Ran's ears, it was a different story. He excitedly grabbed her hand and said, Qingyan, I knew that you cared about me. Chu Qingyan unconsciously wanted to break free from his hand, but when she heard his words, she thought that this child was like a block of ice. Even though he had his parents' love, it couldn't compare to the common people. He also didn't have many friends, so she placed him in the category of those who lacked love since he was young and felt a bit of pity for him. She shook her head with a smile as if she was looking at a child asking for candy. We'll be a family in the future, so of course we'll care for each other. But when she said this, Chu Qingyan's heart skipped a beat. With Consort Yu and Empress Liang's infighting, could these 2 brothers still be so brotherly? She couldn't give an answer to this question. However, no one could say for sure what would happen in the future. Let nature take its course. At this time, Xiao Ran remembered the reason he came here. He took out an invitation from his sleeve and handed it to her. What is this? Chu Qingyan took it and asked, puzzled. Invitation card. It's a lotus poetry gathering held by Aunt Huiyu. You can make friends through poetry, painting, or zither. To put it simply, it's a gathering of young people to have fun. Xiao Ran explained with a smile. He looked at her expectantly, hoping that she would agree. Chu Qingyan looked at the cover. It was painted with a slender and graceful lotus. The green leaves complemented each other. It was elegant and poetic. The handwriting on it was clear and elegant. She could not help but sigh. The designer was a talented person. However, this poetry gathering didn't seem to be as simple as Xiao Ran said. In her opinion, it was another disguised matchmaking convention. She wasn't going to join in the fun. I still don't. Before he finished speaking, Xiao Ran's eyes suddenly lit up. Eldest brother, you're back. Chu Qingyan turned her head and saw a man in a black robe walking in. She naturally curved her lips. There was only that person in her eyes. Xiao Su sensed her gaze and responded with a slight smile. However, when he faced Xiao Ran, he was already acting like Brother Yen. Why are you here today? Are you feeling better? Xiao Ran immediately replied, I've been fine for a long time. If it weren't for the matter in the palace, I would have come long ago. Oh right, I'm here to send an invitation card to Qingyan. I want to invite her to play with us. The more the merrier. Xiao Su noticed the invitation card in the little fellow's hand. He looked up and saw her inquiring gaze. He took the invitation card and flipped through it, then handed it back to her. You should also go and walk around more. You won't feel bored and cooped up in the fu and grow grass. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. She really didn't like socializing. However, since the big ice cube said so, it shouldn't be a problem. Thus, she turned around and said to Xiao Ran, Okay, I agree. Xiao Ran immediately cheered and jumped for joy. Chu Qingyan only thought that he was being childish and didn't pay much attention to him. However, Xiao Su was different. His gaze fell deeply on Xiao Ran before finally moving away. The few of them sat down in the guest hall and chatted while drinking tea. Eldest brother, do you know that Nan Song has sent an envoy to our Sichuan? Xiao Ran recalled this matter. Xiao Su nodded. Imperial father mentioned it when I entered the palace a few days ago. Then you must know that Nan Song has sent a princess over this time to make peace with our Sichuan. Xiao Su nodded. These words attracted Chu Qingyan's attention. A princess for peace? She felt that something wasn't right. Usually, in these transmigration books, when there was a princess for peace, the one she liked was the male lead. Although she didn't dare to say that she and the big ice cube were the male and female leads, she felt that this matter made her feel uneasy. Why didn't you mention this to me? Chu Qingyan glanced sideways at the person beside her. Xiao Su raised his brows. It's not important. Why would I mention it? She liked this tone of his. As a result, the person who was about to explode was immediately soothed. Xiao Ran suddenly felt an invisible but uncomfortable air flow between the two of them. It separated them, and he felt like an outsider. He immediately spoke up, snatching their attention back. I heard from Imperial Father's people that he intends to pick one of the 4 princes to be in charge of welcoming the envoy at the border. I don't know who he'll pick. Xiao Su chuckled. It should be the 3 of you. Why? Xiao Ran was confused. There were clearly 4 of them. Chu Qingyan smiled. It's easy to guess. If one person doesn't count, then it has to be your eldest brother. Xiao Ran was even more confused. You're really stupid. Your eldest brother personally defeated the Southern Blue Army and drove them back to their nest. Do you think they'll agree to let someone who once defeated them welcome them? I'm afraid they'll be on tenterhooks all the way. Will your eldest brother kill them? So your imperial brother is eliminated. Xiao Ran suddenly understood. So that's how it is. Then who do you think they'll send? You. Chu Qingyan smiled at him. Why me? Xiao Ran frowned. He didn't want to go. Chu Qingyan shrugged. It's very simple. If you use the method of elimination, the second prince has a free and unfettered nature. He basically doesn't meddle in the affairs of the court. His Majesty won't risk letting someone who loves to play take on such a big responsibility. Furthermore, the third prince has been frail and sick for so many years. He'll have to travel thousands of miles to welcome them. Not to mention the long journey, there's also a lot of etiquette. His Majesty won't let the third prince take on such a troublesome task. Although Chu Qingyan's words were reasonable, Xiao Ran still wanted to refute. I was once their opponent, although I lost in the end. Chu Qingyan smiled. Then their enmity towards you won't be so big. Isn't that even better? This analysis was clear and logical. It made Xiao Ran's head hurt. No, he had to think of a way to avoid this matter. Otherwise, this trip would be delayed for a long time. Not only would it delay the poetry gathering, but if Qingyan left, how many years would it be before they could meet again? He couldn't afford to gamble. Seeing Xiao Ran leave in a hurry, Xiao Su looked at her. Are you scaring him? No, I'm just letting him see the situation clearly. She spread her hands. Xiao Su shook his head and laughed. Chapter 1043. The two of them sat across from each other in the hall, chatting casually. Xiao Su had been busy with the military camp these days. They had little time to communicate except for breakfast and breakfast. At this time, they cherished the time to chat. They didn't have to find a topic to talk about. Even if it was just asking about what they had eaten in the afternoon, it was also a kind of fun. Big ice block. Who is the Aunt Huiyu that Xiao Ran mentioned just now? When she was in the capital, she didn't go out much because of her young age. Now that she had just come back, she didn't know much about the social circle in the capital. She could only ask for help. Xiao Su recalled and said, "She is my father's cousin. Because there were very few princesses in my father's generation, my grandfather named her Princess Huiyu. In fact, her real name is not this. She married Commandery Prince Li 20 years ago. She likes to match unmarried men and women, so she often holds poetry and flower parties. For example, this Lotus Poetry Party. Basically, all the unmarried young men and women in the court have received the invitation." I see. I knew it. This kind of party is a disguised blind date party. It's not fun. By the way, how do you know so much? You even know who she invited. Do you also want to go on a blind date and add some people to the mansion, huh? Chu Qingyan pulled his sleeve and asked him to tell the truth. Xiao Su didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this little vinegar jar. Yesterday, Princess Huiyu asked someone to send the invitation to me. But the purpose is the young generals I brought this time. She was barely satisfied with this explanation. Then she immediately revealed a mischievous smile. Speaking of which, our little generals are all handsome and talented. If they're not little fresh meat, then they're handsome men. Compared to those who only know how to talk, they're true to their words, and they also know how to take care of others. Whoever marries them is a blessing. Why do I feel like you are selling melons to a woman? Xiao Su laughed. Chu Qingyan snorted. Of course, I have to praise my own people. Besides, we are their parents' family, aren't we? The little fellow's words successfully made him laugh. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. Then she remembered something and immediately looked at him vigilantly. By the way, Jin Xian also received the invitation, didn't he? Xiao Su glanced at her. As a commandant, and as you said, he is handsome and capable. What do you think? That won't do. Chu Qingyan jumped up. Why not? Although men and women should get married when they are of age, he has been reserved by my Xining. I have to help Xining look after him. I can't let others break them. 2. Alright, so you're saying that the two of us are unmarried as well? Does that mean that I can still? Before she could finish her sentence, she suddenly felt the world spinning around her. She found herself sitting on his lap. Meeting his deep eyes, she was stunned and almost slipped down. Fortunately, she reached out and hugged his neck. Because of this, she delivered herself to his door. Before she could regain her senses, his kisses were densely packed. She wanted to remind him that they were still in the living room and that people were coming and going, but it was too late. As if he knew her concerns, Xiao Su waved his hand and closed the doors and windows. The bright living room immediately dimmed, but it added a bit of charm to the two of them. After returning to the capital for so many days, there were too many eyes watching them. He also had too many things to deal with, so the two of them did not have much time to interact. Now that they touched each other, his heart trembled. He did not want to have too many misgivings and wanted to fiercely squeeze her into his body. Under her gentleness, the storm-like attacks gradually became less impatient and more patient. They lingered in each other's arms and were reluctant to part. She slowly adapted to him and turned from passive to active. What a joke! She was not one of those reserved young ladies who scrupulously followed etiquette. She clearly wanted it but pretended that she was shy and did not want it. So she climbed onto his neck and tried to trace the shape of his lips. Their fiery breaths intertwined and it was impossible to tell who was who. He was very satisfied with the little fellow's performance. Passion ignited at the slightest touch. It was hard to part. In the evening, the light of the setting sun shone through the paper window and onto the ground, leaving only a faint light yellow. In such a beautiful time of dusk, full of sentiments, of course, one should enjoy to the fullest, and not let time be empty. They were already close and separated several times. When the two of them finally separated, they were sweating profusely and their clothes were soaked. It was unknown whether it was because the weather was too hot or because they were trying their best to restrain themselves. Their faces were red and their clothes were disheveled. But their bodies were leaning against each other and they blended into the sunset, giving off an indescribable feeling of beauty. Xiao Su lowered his head and met her watery eyes. He leaned closer and touched her gently. Then he slowly opened his mouth. His voice was low and husky, full of magnetism, as if he was extremely languid after indulging himself. What you said just now, are you going to say it again in the future? At this time, Chu Qingyan had already lost her mind. Her body was as soft as glue and she did not know what he was talking about. She could not help but ask in confusion, "What?" As if she had been moisturized by water, her voice was coquettish and charming. The moment she spoke, Chu Qingyan was shocked by herself and her soul almost left her body. When her voice fell, Xiao Su moved his finger and lifted her chin. He smiled wickedly and approached her, his voice carrying a faint threat. "Do you need me to help you remember?" The feeling of almost being sucked dry just now still had lingering fears in her heart. She swallowed her saliva and blocked him with both hands. She looked up and smiled obediently. Remember. I won't say it again in the future unless you do something wrong." Heavens, this serious ice cube was so scary. It was as if he wanted to eat her up. She only wanted to scare him, but she was almost eaten up by him. Only then did Xiao Su nod his head in satisfaction. He gave her a light peck on the forehead as a reward. She was a little dazed by his gentle kiss, but her rationality still prevailed and she did not forget to take the opportunity to make her stand clear. "Since I've already said it, you're not allowed to flirt with other women for me in the future. You have to remember that you're already taken. If I find out that you have other thoughts, hee." Xiao Su reached out and rubbed her head. The corners of his eyes under the mask lifted, revealing a doting smile. "I won't let that happen." She nodded reluctantly, but she was already smiling in her heart. Although it was a little sticky to hug each other on such a hot day, the two of them did not feel uncomfortable at all. Instead, they felt that this kind of time was hard to come by as they snuggled up to each other. "Big Ice Cube, I'll act first and report later. Speak." Chapter 1044. Thus, she leaned against him and told him everything that she had done to the stewards this afternoon. "We left for a few years and they thought that there was no tiger in the mountain and the monkey was the king. Not only did they make fake accounts to fool me, they even embezzled the silver from the storehouse and made false reports. In any case, I was just angry. If you think that I went overboard, then I'll admit it." Her originally calm mood exploded when this matter was brought up. This Wang Fu would be under her control in the future. If they squandered it until there was nothing left, how could she support this large family of people? There was no need for the little fellow to say it. He had already heard about this before he entered. He reached out to press down the ahog on her head and said in a warm voice, "I think that your methods are not enough." His warm voice carried a chill that made people tremble. Chu Qingyan raised her brows in surprise. "What do you mean?" "For traders, there's no value in keeping them." Xiao Su smiled faintly. "Even Hongyi is one of them? But she has worked hard for you for so many years and you're willing to let her go?" She crossed her arms as she looked at him. Xiao Su smiled and reached out to pinch her cheeks. Only when she grimaced did he let go. "I've never used people I suspect and never suspect people I use. Since they're disloyal, there's no need to keep them by my side." Chu Qingyan understood tacitly. She blinked. "I originally wanted to give them up, but seeing that their abilities aren't bad and that I can't find anyone to replace them, I can only intimidate them first and force them to spit out the silver. In the future, I'll deal with them one by one. You can be at ease and deal with them boldly. If there's anything you can't do, just say it. I'm your strongest backing." Xiao Su gave a low chuckle. His pampering voice almost made Chu Qingyan melt. As expected, a man with a pleasant voice was a bonus. "All right." She looked up and smiled. The little fellow in front of him had already lost her childishness and was as lively as the water spirit. At this time, Xiao Ran, who had returned from the Moon Palace, had his brows tightly knit. "Your Highness, what did Her Highness say?" Seeing His Highness remain silent, Xiang Yu couldn't help but worry. Xiao Ran sighed deeply, feeling a little vexed. "Imperial Mother said that Imperial Father hasn't made a decision yet, but she hopes that I can take the initiative to ask for Imperial Father's permission. After all, I didn't manage to seize the opportunity to perform in front of Imperial Father when we were dealing with Southern Blue. Now that I have this opportunity, she wants me to not miss it. Your Highness, this is a good thing. You can also take this opportunity to train yourself." Xiang Yu agreed. Xiao Su glared at him. "What's so good about it? I don't even want to pick up that princess. I just want to stay in Qing Dash." At this point, he immediately stopped. His expression became even more dejected as he slowly walked towards his own palace. Just as he was about to reach the entrance of the hall, he saw a familiar figure standing on the steps. He was overjoyed and went up to greet the figure. "Third Imperial Brother, why are you here? It's hot outside. Hurry and enter the hall." He was both happy and worried about his Imperial brother's health, so he spoke quickly. Xiao Ho turned to look at him. His fingers pressed on the belt of his cloak as he laughed self-deprecatingly. "With my constitution, I'm not afraid of heat or cold. There's no need to worry." Xiao Ran thought of Third Imperial Brother's frail and sickly body, then looked at how tightly wrapped he was without a trace of sweat. He was already drenched in sweat from not jogging towards him. He couldn't help but feel pity for him. "Third Imperial Brother, it's fine. Let's properly recuperate. You'll get better in the future." Hearing such naive words coming from his mouth was a little silly. Xiao Ho shook his head in his heart. He really couldn't bear to lay his hands on such a stupid person. He nodded, then followed Xiao Ran into the hall. "Third Imperial Brother, why did you think of coming to find me on such a hot day? If there's anything, you could have just sent someone to inform me." After having someone serve tea, Xiao Ran asked in confusion. Xiao Ho faintly smiled. "It's fine. The Imperial physician said that I need to walk more to promote the flow of my blood. Actually, I did come to find you for something." "Please speak, Imperial Brother," Xiao Ran earnestly said. "A few days ago, I found out about your worries and was thinking that you should be preparing to take action. However, I heard a bit of news that the Southern Blue Sea's envoy was coming to Sichuan. Imperial Father would choose one of the princes to be in charge of receiving the envoy. I thought about it, and other than you, there doesn't seem to be anyone suitable." Xiao Ho lightly coughed a few times and slowly said. When Xiao Ran heard this, his face immediately became depressed. "That's right. I also heard from Imperial Mother. Right now, I'm having a headache." Xiao Ho lowered his eyebrows and a cold light flashed in his eyes. However, on the surface, he still looked as gentle as jade. "Fourth Imperial Brother, you don't need to worry. This Imperial Brother has a way to help you solve this matter." Xiao Ran's eyes lit up. "Really? What method do you have? The method is for me to go in your place. Xiao smiled. What? That won't do. Traveling day and night is very tiring. How can your body withstand it? Xiao Ran repeatedly waved his hand. Xiao smiled. Don't think of your imperial brother as such a weakling. Recently, the imperial physician said that my body is much better and suggested that I go out and walk more. So, I'm not doing it all for you. Really? Xiao Ran asked with wide eyes. Xiao smiled and nodded. Xiao Ran said gratefully, Third imperial brother, you've done me a big favor. If you need anything in the future, just tell me. Even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or dive into a sea of fire, I'll do it for you. Xiao smiled with satisfaction in his heart. This was the result he wanted. This trip to receive the envoy was originally part of his plan. Bribing Xiao Ran's heart was just a matter of convenience. As he left, he raised his hand and lightly patted Xiao Ran's back. We're all brothers. No need to be so formal. Right now, I'll go find Imperial Father to report this matter. Third Imperial Brother, take care. Xiao Ran gratefully escorted him to the door of the hall. After he left, Xiao Ran jumped 3 feet into the air, unable to contain his joy. Great. Then I can participate in the Lotus Poetry Meet. Xiao heard the commotion in the hall from afar. He loosened his tie and laughed lowly. Then he slowly walked towards the imperial study. Because he had been ill for a long time, he hadn't seen his son in a long time. When the Sichuan emperor saw him, he couldn't help but be surprised. When he heard that he was going to receive the envoy, the Sichuan emperor wanted to refuse. However, he couldn't bear to refuse his son's first request in many years. Just as he was hesitating on how to persuade him to reduce the damage, Xiao smiled calmly and spoke. Imperial Father, I have never left the capital since I was a child. I don't know if I'll have the chance to leave in this lifetime. These words caused the long-lost affection in the Sichuan emperor's heart to surge. This child, Xiao, had been soaked in medicine for so many years. The imperial physician said that he was only using medicine to keep his life. How long he could live depended on luck. Furthermore, he was busy with state affairs and didn't have time to take care of this child. How could he bear to refuse such a small request? Okay, Imperial Father promises you. The Sichuan emperor agreed with mixed feelings. Xiao lowered his head and curved his lips. Thank you, Imperial Father. Chapter 1045. It was a dark night. In the distant border between the two countries, a majestic army was stationed in a town. The people coming and going were all big and burly men. They wore the military uniform of the Southern Blue Army. Every one of them was bare-chested and exposed their stomachs. Every time they walked, there was a gust of wind. These people surrounded the entire town, not allowing even a fly to fly in. It was quiet all around. In a room in the center of the town, there was a slight noise. A maid was silently knocked unconscious by a hand blade. When the maid fell down, under the bright moonlight, she could see the black-clothed man standing there clearly. However, this black-clothed person didn't seem to know martial arts. After checking that the maid was only unconscious, the black-clothed person jumped up and covered her wrist, crying out in pain. However, she didn't dare to make a sound and only dared to walk in circles. The black-clothed person's chest rose and fell as she jumped up and down. Her figure was slim and slender. There was no need to guess to know that it was a woman, a young woman. Before the pain subsided, she remembered the important matter and immediately opened the window. Immediately, the bright moonlight poured in, illuminating the magnificent decorations inside. They were all top-notch items from the palace and were extremely luxurious. However, the woman was not in the mood to appreciate it at all. She spat, "Isn't it just a golden silk cage? I don't want to live in it anymore. Bye-bye, you." As she spoke, she pulled the bedsheet that was tied to the side. It was made of golden silk. If it was placed outside, not many people could afford to use it. If it was a normal day, she would definitely feel a bit of pity and then remove the golden silk. However, her life was more important now. She threw the bedsheet down the window and fixed it. She carefully looked around. After confirming that there was no one, she clumsily turned over and grabbed the bedsheet, slowly sliding down. Although this was only the second floor, her body was weak and couldn't withstand the tossing and turning. Just as she carefully slid down, a throwing knife suddenly flew out of nowhere. It spun in the air and flew towards her bedsheet. The woman secretly cried out. Before she could react, with a tearing sound, the bedsheet was torn and she fell down. Ouch! Her whole body fell to the ground and the woman screamed. Suddenly, torches were lit all around. The originally empty courtyard was suddenly crowded with people. The woman's eyes were blinded by the light of the fire, and she felt like crying. Through her teary eyes, she saw a familiar yet unfamiliar figure. "Little Zijing, why are you playing hide and seek with us in the middle of the night?" The cold voice sounded oppressive. Pang Zijing's mouth twitched. "Brother Crown Prince, why are you here?" Pang Huang, who was dressed in a blue brocade robe, stood in the middle of the crowd and smiled. "If Imperial Brother wasn't here, wouldn't you have escaped? I'm not running away, I'm just fooling around." She lowered her head as she spoke. Her attire was a confession. Pang Huang pursed his lips. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and help Her Highness back to her room." "Yes." The palace maids, who were trembling with fear, immediately rushed over to help her up. Pang Zijing gritted her teeth. Her painstakingly planned plan was ruined again. When she passed by Pang Huang, she heard him warn her in a low voice, "Go to Sichuan properly. If you try to play tricks again, not only Imperial Brother, but even Imperial Father will not let you off easily." Pang Zijing agreed with a fake smile, but in her heart, she wanted to chop him into pieces. Sichuan, the capital. The news that Xiao Ho was in charge of receiving the envoy spread like wildfire throughout the court. No one would have thought that this frail prince would one day participate in court affairs. They thought that he would spend the rest of his life hugging a bottle of medicine. But there was no time for them to react. The next day, Xiao Ho led his entourage out of the city under the morning sun. When Chu Qingyan heard the news, she was in disbelief. "Big Ice Cube, I don't think I've met this third prince before. What kind of person is he? I heard that because of his poor health, he keeps a low profile." When Xiao Su heard this, he put down the book in his hand. Low profile, he was indeed very low profile. He was so low profile that the entire court had almost forgotten that there was such a prince. But after so many years, his actions did not make people happy. Seeing that he was silent, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but reach out to nudge him. "What are you thinking about?" Xiao Su raised his head and looked at her seriously. "Ian, if you meet him in the future, avoid him if you can. Don't have any direct conflict with him." "Huh? Rumor has it that he is as gentle as jade, but because of his illness, his body was damaged. Heaven is jealous of his talents. Why did he become a scourge when it came to you?" Chu Qingyan scratched her head, not understanding. Moreover, looking at Big Ice Cube's expression, it seemed that this prince was a powerful master. Even he couldn't help but be wary of him. "Do you still remember the disappearance of the money in the bank?" In order to let the little fellow be more alert in the future, Xiao Su brought up the matter of the past. "How could I not remember? Because of this matter, I almost lost my life in that strange town." "Wait, you mean the spy that was planted in the bank that year was?" She cleverly avoided mentioning Xiao Ho's name and asked in surprise. Xiao Su smiled faintly and praised, "Not stupid." At this time, how could she care about refuting his words? In her mind, she imagined that the hidden hand behind the scenes had disguised himself as a weak prince to deceive everyone. She immediately grabbed his sleeve. "That's too scary. How could it be hidden for so many years?" Xiao Su patted her hand lightly. "Don't think too much. Just do what you have to do." Chu Qingyan nodded. Actually, she now had a strong interest in Xiao Ho. Generally, in books, people who didn't pretend to be ill and endured hardships would be able to achieve great things. However, the prerequisite was that they had to be lucky enough to become the male lead in the book. Only then would they have a chance. This person was patient enough and smart enough. If there was a chance, she would like to meet him. Although the two of them had not met face to face, They had already exchanged blows. She had a lot of opinions about him. At this time, Xiao walked in. "Your Highness, Master, the guards at the gate have come to report that there are 2 people outside the residence who claim to be your Highness and Master's old friends. They want to see you." "Old friends? Or both of them?" Chu Qingyan looked at Big Ice Cube. Both of them were puzzled. "Let them in," Xiao Su said. After a moment, the 2 of them heard the sound of footsteps approaching from afar. But before the person arrived, the voice first sounded. "So this is the capital's noble courtyard. It's indeed grand and magnificent. It's not something that a small family can compare to." A bright and beautiful voice sounded. It was as if one could imagine the joyful appearance of the speaker through these words. "Put away your saliva." A calm and gentle voice sounded. Following the woman's words, it brought a cool breeze to this hot and dry weather. One could tell who it was by hearing the voice. Chu Qingyan's eyes widened in surprise. Her hands tightly grasped Big Ice Cube's hand. "It's her." "They're here." The little fellow's excited and happy mood infected him. He couldn't help but smile and nod. Chapter 1046. The person who spoke had already reached the door. Chu Qingyan's heart was in her throat as she stared intently with incomparable anticipation. In the blink of an eye, a silhouette leapt into her sight. Following that, a man dressed in white followed the person in front of him into the room. The woman was spirited and lively while the man was gentle and elegant. Wasn't it Hua family's Xiao Li and official Lin? "My little darling, can't you recognize us?" Hua Xiao Li entered the room and saw Chu Qingyan standing there in a daze. 3 steps turned into 2 steps as he walked in front of her and teased her. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows at the way Hua Xiao Li addressed him. He turned his head to look at his good friend who was slowly walking over. "Rare guest. How could I not recognize you? It's just that your arrival made me too surprised. Why didn't you say anything before coming so that we could go and pick you up?" Chu Qingyan couldn't hide her joy as she spoke. "Pick what up? It's too troublesome. We have hands and feet and this miser knows your address. We're not afraid of not being able to find you. That's right, it's not just the 2 of us who came. We also brought someone for you." Hua Xiaoli winked at her and then clapped his hands. "Didn't you want to see your master? Why haven't you shown yourself yet?" At this time, a sky blue figure answered and walked in. It was a familiar figure and a familiar face. It was just that time had sharpened her edges and washed away her childishness, adding a steady and capable aura. "Xining?" Chu Qingyan excitedly welcomed her. "Master, it's this servant." Xining's eyes were red and her longing was evident in her words. Chu Qingyan held her hand and really didn't know what to say. Sure enough, the relationship between master and servant is deep. You weren't even this excited when you saw me just now. Sure enough, comparisons are odious. Hua Xiaoli sourly said. Today was a great day for Chu Qingyan. She shook her head and smiled when she heard this. She turned around and handed a cup of tea to Hua Xiaoli like a servant. "Master Hua, quickly drink a cup of tea to quench your thirst. It's been a tiring journey." Hua Xiao unceremoniously took the tea she handed over and drank it in big gulps. Walking all the way here was really tiring for her. Lin Fengyi looked at the girls chatting and joking with each other, then smiled and said to his good friend, "You have a lot of things to deal with when you return to the capital, so we don't need to trouble you. That's why I didn't inform you when I came." Xiao Su nodded. "You suddenly came to the capital. Is there something important?" He remembered that his good friend had not stepped into the capital for many years, and as an important local official, he could not leave his post without permission. "That's right. I've already investigated the matter of the official salt smuggling. His Majesty asked me to make a trip to the capital to report it in person," Lin Fengyi explained. Xiao Su understood. He glanced at Hua Xiao and raised his eyebrows at him. "So you brought your family with you this time?" Lin Fengyi chuckled. "I guess so." Xiao Su was a little surprised. Then he smiled. "Congratulations." "Congratulations to you too," Lin Fengyi replied. The girls did not notice what the 2 men were talking about. At this time, Hua Xiao drank a cup of tea and put it down heavily. A trace of guilt appeared on her face. Qingyan, there's something I'm sorry about. We only found out that your parents were missing. We sent people to look for them, but we couldn't find them. Later, we found out that they were taken away by the Empress. Although Iron Rooster said that you already knew, I was still worried. That's why I followed him to the capital. I wanted to see you reunite with my own eyes so that I could be at ease. I didn't finish my task. Hua Xiao was a righteous person. She was a woman of her words. She would definitely do what she promised. Now she blamed herself. Lin Fengyi looked at her with a trace of pity. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she couldn't help but step forward and pat her shoulder. She smiled at her and said, "You've already helped me a lot. No one knew that the Empress would suddenly attack my parents. Even if you knew, you couldn't have stopped it. Those people were all experts in the palace and were highly skilled in martial arts. I've received your kindness. Don't blame yourself." Hua Xiao sniffled and reached out to hug her. "I knew you were the best. Wu, hurry and prepare something delicious to treat us. I'm starving. Even if the bark of a tree was placed in front of me, I would still eat it." The excitement of their reunion turned into a hearty laugh because of her howl. Soon, Chu Qingyan ordered the kitchen to prepare a sumptuous dinner. They sat around the table. Other than Jasper and Xining, they isolated the rest of the servants and enjoyed an atmosphere where no one would disturb them. Wow, delicious. Was this made by the imperial chef in the palace? Just as he took a bite, Hua Xiao cried out loudly. "No, it's made by a servant girl in charge of the household's meals." Chu Qingyan was amused by Ji Yunshu's blabbering. "Her culinary skills are amazing. I've never eaten such delicious food in Jiangnan. Qingyan, let's make a deal. Can you poach her back to Jiangnan to be the imperial chef of my restaurant?" Hua Xiao's occupational disease as a businesswoman immediately manifested. Her eyes sparkled with silver as she acted coquettishly towards her good friend. Chu Qingyan coughed softly and pointed to the person beside her. "I can't make the decision for this person. You can ask this person." Hua Xiao followed her gaze and glanced at Xiao Su. She swallowed and immediately dismissed the idea. She should just eat obediently. Seeing that she couldn't wait to stuff her mouth with food, Lin Fengyi couldn't help but advise, "No one's fighting with you. Eat slowly. You don't understand. We're just freeloading. We don't know when we'll be able to eat again. So, eating more is profiting." Hua Xiao's words made everyone speechless, but they couldn't help but admit that it made sense. At this time, Lin Fengyi said as he ate, "When can you leave this place?" "It's hard to say." Xiao Su frowned slightly. Imperial father and imperial mother won't let them go. At the very least, they have to wait until Nansong's diplomatic group leaves. Lin Fengyi sighed. Today is different from the past. If you step into this quagmire again, it'll be hard to extricate yourself. Xiao Su also understood. Let's just let nature take its course. Lin Fengyi knew that he wouldn't fight an unprepared battle, so he didn't linger on this topic any longer. Instead, the two of them discussed the matters of the imperial court. Chu Qingyan thought of something. "Xiaoli, I'm going to participate in a lotus poetry competition in 2 days. You should come with me." Hua Xiaoli shook her head decisively. "I'm not going. What I hate the most are those scholars and beauties who moan and recite poems. If I have that kind of free time, I'd rather go to the capital and see if there's any business opportunities." Chu Qingyan felt that if Hua Xiaoli didn't go, it would be boring for her to go alone. Just as she was thinking of how to persuade Hua Xiaoli to go, the person beside her spoke. "Fengyi, the poetry competition this time has invited a famous painter, Great Master Miaoqing. Do you need me to leave an invitation for you?" Xiao Su said indifferently. Other than handling cases, Lin Fengyi liked to paint in his free time. When he heard his good friend say this, he looked at Chu Qingyan with understanding. Then, he nodded at his good friend. Hua Xiaoli heard this. There would definitely be many beauties at this poetry competition. If her miser went, wouldn't he fall into a pack of wolves? That wouldn't do. "Qingyan, leave an invitation for me too. I'm definitely going," Hua Xiaoli said full of energy. Chu Qingyan was a bit surprised. Didn't this person just righteously refuse? Xiao Su smiled and continued to chat with his good friend. Chapter 1047. Because of her good friend's arrival, Chu Qingyan felt that her days were no longer so dull. Even when Big Ice Cube was not around, she had someone to talk to. Especially when there was someone to help review the accounts that had been piled up in the prince's residence in the past few years. With such a capable assistant, it was practically twice the work with half the effort. And Xining's arrival relieved a lot of Jasper's burden. At the same time, Xining relied on her many years of experience to quickly gain the approval of the servants, and she took over the affairs of the inner courtyard together with Qing Yi. Hong Yi saw that Chu Qingyan was surrounded by her own people. The power of the inner courtyard was being taken over bit by bit, and she was no longer the beloved head maidservant of the past. She felt very upset, and the seeds of resentment in her heart were planted and sprouted little by little. Did you notice that Hong Yi is very strange recently? Elvie asked Huang. Huang Yi was washing the vegetables when she heard this and shook her head. I've been researching new dishes recently, so I didn't notice. What's wrong with her? Although she's not in charge of anything now, she seems to have a lot on her mind all day. I wonder if she's not feeling well? Lve asked with a worried expression. Huang Yi shook off the water droplets on her hands and said with a smile, Hong Yi might have a busy life. Now that she's not doing anything, she feels uncomfortable. Lve could not find any other explanation, so she could only nod in agreement. Perhaps. Ali, I have something to say, but I don't know if you're willing to hear it. Lve sensed that her tone was a little different from usual, and could not help but raise her head to look at her. At this time, Huang Yi had already walked in front of her with the vegetables. She said with a slightly serious expression, in the future, stay away from Hong Yi. Perhaps, she's no longer the Hong Yi we knew in the past. Or it could be said that all these years, they had never seen the real her. Lve looked at her in surprise. Huang Yi smiled at her and then turned to leave. Lve was a kind person. Aside from her own duties, she rarely left the courtyard. Occasionally, she would help the sisters around her. She had a gentle personality and was a good girl that was hard to come by. Huang Yi looked up at the blue sky. She hoped that Lve would not be involved in this whirlpool. Good people will be rewarded. As for the wicked, they would naturally be punished. She curled her lips in self-mockery and strode away. In the blink of an eye, the day of the Lotus Poetry meet had arrived. Chu Qingyan originally just wanted to dress up casually so as not to be impolite, but she didn't want to be blocked in the room early in the morning, trying on clothes one by one. Wow, Qingyan, you look good in anything. But this one is too plain, no? She is indeed a devastatingly beautiful woman. But this one isn't unique enough. Let's change it. This one is good. If I were a man, I would definitely fall at your feet. But what is it missing? Let's change it. For the entire morning, Chu Qingyan felt that she was like a spinning top being tossed around by her good friend. Until she heard the words, this one. Like the sound of nature, she was finally liberated. However, the other person did not let her go. She personally put on her makeup and tied up her hair. With this kind of tossing, another half an hour passed. I can finally understand why women spend so much time going out. The reason is to toss around. Chu Qingyan closed her eyes and let her fiddle with her. I guarantee that you will become the most stunning, most outstanding and most dazzling focus of attention. Hua Xiao praised herself as she worked. Chu Qingyan smiled awkwardly. Isn't it good for us to be invisible? Why do we have to steal other people's attention? Hua Xiao sneered. Do you think you can be invisible? You have the title of the King of England's fiancé. Wherever you go, you will be the center of discussion, okay? Can you have some self-awareness? Don't always think that you are just a little flower or grass. Chu Qingyan smiled helplessly. AI, it's really troublesome. If I had known, I wouldn't have gone. It's too late. Hua Xiao withdrew her hand and took a step back. She smiled and said, My beauty, open your eyes and take a look. Chu Qingyan moved when she heard that. When the beautiful and moving appearance in the mirror fell into her eyes, She was a little startled. Was this her? Are you crying because of your beauty? Xiao leaned over to look at her and giggled. I said that you definitely didn't dress yourself up seriously. You have such good capital, so of course you have to dress up well and strive to blind these people's dog eyes. Previously, during the palace banquet, there were people who tried to make things difficult for Qin Yan. She had already heard about it from the people in the residence. That was why she was so angry and wanted to dress Qin Yan up properly. When the time came, she would definitely be able to suppress everyone with her beauty and crush the confidence of those people. Qin Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't you think that this is too eye-catching? You don't have to care. Anyway, if you cause trouble, your big ice cube will solve it. Isn't that right, Your Highness? Xiao's tone changed as she spoke. Qin Yan sensed the difference in her words and couldn't help but raise her head to look at the door. She saw a tall figure appear at the door. Xiao tactfully patted her shoulder. We will set off in the time it takes to brew a cup of tea. I will wait for you in the front courtyard. After saying that, she left. At this time, there were only 2 people left in the room. She didn't know why, but she felt that the air was a little thin. She stood up uncomfortably from the chair. She pulled here and there and said unnaturally, I think it's enough, but Xiao said that it would be good to dress up like this. At this time, Xiao Su had already walked in front of her and reached out to lift her lowered chin. When their eyes met, she heard his gentle and doting voice. It's very beautiful, I like it very much, but I don't want you to be seen by others. The usually calm and collected Qin Yan also had a moment of shyness. She didn't dare to look at him. How about I change? It's just a poetry recital. It's not good to attract too much attention. No need. Although I don't want others to see my selfishness, I also don't want you to hide your brilliance. You can be yourself. You don't have to hide it for anyone, not even me. His low and gentle tone was filled with doting. Qin Yan's heart was moved. She curved her lips and nodded. To be able to meet someone who tolerated you, indulged you, understood you, and loved you, it was really not easy. However, there's a flaw in your makeup, Xiao Su said with a straight face. Where? Qin Yan reached out to touch her face, not understanding. Your lips aren't red enough. She was about to turn around to look at the mirror when her body was pulled into his embrace. She raised her head to ask, but the light in front of her was blocked by a black shadow. Her lips were gently and domineeringly covered, tossing and turning, rubbing and biting. Hey, this won't do. Xiao will get in. She's already gone to the front yard. No one will disturb us. But we're about to set off. There's no hurry. We still have 10 minutes. Don't be distracted. He nibbled and lowered his voice. Otherwise, I may have to add more tea. Under the sunlight, 2 overlapping shadows were reflected on the ground, elongated little by little. The sky was clear and the wind was gentle. It was suitable for talking about love. Chapter 1048. Xiao leaned against the pillar and waited leisurely. When they arrived, she glanced at them and said with a strange expression, Did you eat chili? When the person with her head lowered heard this, her entire face turned red. Did you fall into a dye vat? Xiao suppressed her laughter and leaned over to look at her. Hearing the ridicule in her words, Qin Yan took a step back and pretended to be calm. What nonsense are you talking about? Let's go, it's about time. Xiao snickered and went forward to hold her arm. She said intimately, All right, I won't tease you anymore. It's normal for young couples to be intimate. Qin Yan's face turned even redder when she heard this. However, she seemed to have heard something fishy. You mean, you often and your Lord Lin. She dragged out the last syllable and looked like she was about to say something, causing Xiao's smug face to freeze. Xiao blinked. Qin Yan, look, the weather is really good. It's perfect for admiring flowers, don't you think so? Qin Yan knew that given her personality, she must have spent a lot of time with Lord Lin. Seeing that her ears had turned red, Qin Yan decided to let her off the hook for now. This would also solve her own crisis and prevent her from teasing her all the time. When the two of them walked out of the front door, they saw 3 carriages parked at the entrance and 2 men with outstanding figures and temperaments. Why are there 3 carriages? Aren't there only 4 of us? Isn't 2 enough? Hua Xiaoli asked in confusion. Chu Qingyan was also puzzled. The carriages were very spacious. She, Hua Xiaoli, and Xining could sit in one. Big Ice Cube and Lord Lin could also sit in one. Because the person sitting with you isn't Ian. Xiao Su said and walked straight to Chu Qingyan. What? Hua Xiaoli was confused. If she didn't sit with Qingyan, who would she sit with? However, the answer was already clear. Big Ice Cube, what about Xiaoli? Chu Qingyan was a little troubled. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Isn't there still Feng Yi? At this moment, Lin Fengyi walked over to Hua Xiao. Let's go. Hua Xiao blinked her eyes. Seeing that the person who had forgotten his friends for the sake of his lover had already been taken away by her family's highness, she could only say, since that's the case, I'll reluctantly share a carriage with you. Xining and Jasper also came over. Xining smiled and said, then we will go to the last carriage. Thus, they were assigned to their respective carriages. Big Ice Cube, Feng Yi and Xiaoli are sitting in the same carriage and appearing at the same time. Is that okay? It wasn't that she was pedantic. Although Xishuan didn't have that many rules, the boundaries between men and women were still very strict. Master Lin was an important official of the court and a talented young man. He must be the daughter of a high-ranking official in the capital. Wouldn't this push Xishuan into the heart of the storm? Xiao Su glanced at her. You think this was my idea? Chu Qingyan frowned. It wasn't Big Ice Cube. Could it be Master Lin? That's right. This morning, he took the initiative to mention it. Xiao Su nodded. But she didn't understand. Maybe it's to block the peach blossoms. Xiao Su said indifferently. These days, Feng has been in and out of the palace and has attracted the attention of many officials. Even Imperial Father wants to be a matchmaker for him. It seems that he recognizes his ability and wants to keep him in the capital. So if he is bound by marriage, it will be easy for him to return to the capital and take up a post. Chu Qingyan frowned. So, Master Lin took this opportunity to reveal Xiao Li's identity. First, it was to prevent the women at the poetry festival from having any ideas about him. Second, it was to secretly show that he has a master so that His Majesty and those officials will give up on him. Xiao Su reached out and pinched her face. Very good analysis. Although she was happy to receive Big Ice Cube's praise, she still felt uncomfortable when she thought about it. But this way, isn't Xiao Li trapped in a pack of wolves, tigers, and leopards? These people are not easy to deal with. Master Lin's actions are very risky. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. What do you think she relied on to be able to do well in the business world, no matter how crafty she is? It's nothing more than being able to discern people's expressions and be tactful. These women in the capital may have some tricks up their sleeves, but when faced with a crafty businessman, how can they win? That's right. Xiao Li can even deal with those crafty old foxes. How can he not deal with these little girls? She immediately relaxed and said with a smile, it seems that I should be worried about those women who want to marry Master Lin. For Master Lin to think of this move, this matter must have already become a problem. Otherwise, with his personality, he would not have asked Xiao Li to do anything. It seemed that this matter was already a little tricky. As if he had seen through her thoughts, Xiao Su shook his head and sighed. You don't have to worry about Feng Yi. He just wants to take the opportunity to declare his sovereignty and let someone know that she is also in high demand. That's all. This brat had always wanted to marry Xiao Li, but she did not want to marry so early. So when he came to the capital and encountered this matter, he pushed the boat along with the current and fulfilled his wish. This also made it so that she would not be able to escape the title of Lin Fengyi's woman wherever she went in the future. Master Lin is so crafty. I didn't expect him to be like this. Chu Qingyan widened her eyes. She could not believe that such a cultured and refined person would think of such a move to force a marriage. It was simply too shocking. Seeing her shocked expression, Xiao Su could not help but think that if it were not for the series of unforeseen events, Perhaps she would not be the young miss of the Chu family now, but his princess consort. He was thinking, should the wedding be held in the capital? Just as he was about to speak, the carriage had stopped. Masters, we have arrived at the Guqin and garden. Because Princess Huiyu was favored by the Sichuan emperor, he rewarded her with this garden in the capital. Princess Huiyu held many poetry gatherings, and most of them were held here. So when Chu Qingyan walked to the gate of the garden, she could not help but marvel at the size of the garden and the luxurious appearance it gave off. It is indeed a big deal. No wonder it is the garden of the current princess. Hua Xiaoli stood beside her and sighed a few times. But in Hua Xiaoli's opinion, this was all an empty appearance. It would be more practical to convert it into money. Usually, it is not bad when it is given by the imperial family. Lin Fengyi continued. Because there were many people in front of them checking the invitations, they stood and chatted for a while. It is indeed more magnificent than the houses in Jiangnan. I feel that anything with the words capital in it gives people a different feeling. It should be the aura of nobility. Hua Xiaoli said with her arms crossed. Chu Qingyan heard her sigh. Just as she was about to say something, she heard a rude voice. You really haven't seen the world. What a joke. As soon as the words fell, there was a roar of laughter mixed with some small sounds. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. Did they think that they were Granny Lu visiting the Grandview Garden for the first time? Chapter 1049. In Hua Xiao's ears, these words were a provocation. She turned her head to look in the direction of the voice, only to see a few gorgeously dressed ladies standing not far from them, whispering to each other with handkerchiefs in their hands. The lady in the lead was looking straight at her with an unfriendly gaze. Hua Xiao was puzzled. She had just arrived. Who had she offended? Was it the hatred of killing her father or stealing her husband? There was actually someone who had such obvious enmity towards her? Chu Qingyan knew that she was not one to suffer losses. If someone respected her, she would respect them 10 times over. But if someone dared to offend her, she would haggle over the smallest details. It was very obvious that Hua Xiao was already preparing to make a move. Although she wanted to stop her from making a big fuss here, she did not want her good friend to be ridiculed and ridiculed for no reason. Thinking that there would probably be more storms inside, Chu Qingyan might as well let her make a fuss. At worst, she would come out and clean up the mess later. Hua Xiao suddenly said, "Who is that person?" Chu Qingyan had just returned not long ago, so she did not know her. She recalled that she had asked Jasper to investigate the ladies and madams in the capital, so that she could be of use in the future. She turned her head to ask Jasper. Jasper walked out and replied, "The daughter of the political governor, Xiang Zhen. Her name is Xiang Yue." The political governor, the right chief minister's assistant. Hua Xiao pondered for a moment, then smiled at her good friend beside her. I can afford to offend her. Anyway, even if she could not afford to offend her, there was still Miser. At worst, there was still Qingyan's huge backing. At this moment, their group had already walked to the entrance of the courtyard and met with those ladies. Although Su embroidery is widely worn by the upper-class aristocrats, this is the first time I've seen such unfashionable Su embroidery. When passing by a few people, Hua Xiao's line of sight casually swept over Xiang Yue, then she casually said as she brushed past her. Among the people present, other than Xiang Yue, no one wore Su embroidery, so there was no need to think to know who she was talking about. Xiang Yue flew into a rage out of humiliation. What are you talking about? I asked someone to buy this high-quality Suzhou embroidery from Jiangnan. It's hard to get. What does a bumpkin like you know? As soon as she finished speaking, the girl beside her also began to chime in. That's right. Why are you talking to a layman about this? It's a waste of time. Chu Qingyan looked at this domineering and arrogant confrontation. Although she wanted to help, she restrained herself because she saw that official Lin was not worried at all. Instead, he was looking into his sleeve with interest, as if he had a card up his sleeve. In business, she had been scolded by many people. To Hua Xiao, this was just a small trick. She didn't care at all. There are records that the embroidery of the Song dynasty was done with fine needlework. 1 or 2 threads were used, and the needles were as fine as hair. Embroidery has the characteristics of flat, neat, fine, dense, harmonious, bright, smooth, and even. Among these, density means that the lines are arranged in a compact manner without showing any flaws. Look at your clothes, do you have such an effect? Although these people were disgusted by this girl who came out of nowhere, when they heard her professional comments, they couldn't help but lower their heads to look at Xiang Yue's clothes. Indeed, although the lines were fine, it was still not up to the standard of Su embroidery. Xiang Yue also saw it. She saw that the attitude of the people around her had changed. She was anxious. Do you think we will believe whatever you say? We are not that stupid. Just because my family is the largest Su embroidery shop in Jiangxian, how about it? Hua Xiao smiled at her very kindly. Chu Qingyan nodded in her heart. Hua Xiao's family business was spread across various industries. In terms of food and clothing, she was an expert. To her, it was a piece of cake for her to give professional comments. Previously, Xiang Yue had been showing off that she had bought this beautiful and expensive set of clothes. Although the sisters around her praised her verbally, they didn't feel good in their hearts and didn't like her actions. Now that she had been exposed and it was just a defective product, they couldn't help but gloat. It was just that they couldn't show it on their faces. Xiang Yue couldn't hold her face anymore. She really didn't know what Su embroidery looked like. This was also her first time wearing it. However, she was humiliated in public, and it was in front of the man she liked. She stopped arguing with Hua Xiaoli and turned to complain to Lin Fengyi, who was watching the show from the side. Lord Lin, please take a look. Such a vulgar and tactless businesswoman doesn't deserve to stand beside you. Scholars, farmers, businessmen, and businessmen. Scholars were the most glorious, while businessmen were the most lowly. Therefore, after hearing Hua Xiao's words, Xiang Yue found a point to attack. However, she didn't choose to say it to Hua Xiao. Instead, she said it to Lin Fengyi. In her opinion, this was a chance for Lin Fengyi to ignore Hua Xiao and notice her. Long ago, her father had mentioned that there was a talented official in Jiangnan who was appreciated by His Majesty. Moreover, he was still unmarried. If she could marry him, her future would be bright. Therefore, she paid more attention to him. Once, she was lucky enough to meet him and fell in love at first sight. However, he had once hinted that he had a fiancée in Jiangnan, which made many officials retreat. Now that she saw the two of them coming down from the same carriage, she was sure that this person was the fiancé he mentioned. She felt that she wouldn't lose to this woman. She felt indignant and blurted it out. However, this woman wasn't a pushover, so she didn't go against her. When Hua Xiao heard this, she realized that the culprit who was implicated was the person beside her. She crossed her arms and looked coldly at Lin Fengyi. She wanted to see how this guy was going to clean up the battlefield. If he didn't do what she wanted, she would teach him a lesson. When everyone's eyes were focused on Lin Fengyi, they realized that he didn't even look at Xiang Yue. Instead, he said to Hua Xiao, "It's our turn. Don't delay the time because of unimportant people and matters." Chu Qingyan, who was at the side, suppressed her laughter. She really wanted to give official Lin a thumbs up. This move was brilliant. After entering the garden, the smile on Hua Xiao's face changed. She lifted her foot and stomped heavily on Lin Fengyi's foot. "I'm not done with you." As she spoke, she strode forward, completely ignoring him. Lin Fengyi's eyes twitched. It was really embarrassing to be watched by his good friend in public. However, chasing after his wife was more important. He immediately followed behind. This wasn't Jiangnan. He didn't dare to let her run around. It was unknown what official Lin said, but Hua Xiao said, "Go home and prepare to kneel on needlework." Looking at the two figures, Chu Qingyan snickered. She tugged on the sleeve of the person beside her. "Big ice block, you were right. You're really good at fighting. I don't have anything to worry about." Xiao Su smiled. With such a valiant Hua Xiao, he didn't have to worry about anyone coming back to bully his little fellow. This was also the reason why he allowed Hua Xiao to participate in the poetry gathering. If he wasn't by her side, his little fellow wouldn't have to fight alone. "Eldest brother, Jean, wait for me." A familiar voice sounded from behind. Chapter 1050. Chu Qingyan turned around and saw Xiao Ran bent over with his hands on his knees, panting. She was a little surprised. Didn't you take a carriage? Why do you look like you ran all the way here? Xiao Ran took deep breaths. After he calmed down, he slowly walked towards the two. I went to the Wang Fu to look for you, but the guard told me that you had already left, so I rushed over here without stopping to rest. When Xiao Ran saw Chu Qingyan dressed in silver and red, he couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If Mu Fei hadn't called him over and said a lot of things before he left, he wouldn't have been delayed in picking up Qingyan. Chu Qingyan didn't know what he was thinking. She smiled and said, "It's fine. We were just about to go in. Let's go together." The beauty's smile was like a flower, making him forget the unhappiness on the way here. He immediately followed beside her and nodded happily. Eldest brother, third imperial brother went to welcome the envoy 2 days ago. I don't know if his body can withstand the bumpy journey. Xiao Ran sighed as he walked. Xiao Su said faintly, "The path you chose, no matter how bumpy it is, you have to bear it yourself. Others can't interfere." Hearing his eldest brother say this, Xiao Ran was a little anxious. He immediately shook his head and explained, "Third imperial brother went because of me. I owe him." When he said this, Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan looked at each other and read the surprise in each other's eyes. Although there were only a few princes in the imperial family, they had never heard of Xiao Ho and Xiao Ran being so close. "Why did he go because of you?" Chu Qingyan asked in confusion. Xiao Ran cursed inwardly. If he said it, wouldn't he be exposed? He rubbed his nose and said with an uncertain expression, "This is a secret between me and him. Don't ask." Although this topic was over, Xiao Su still paid attention to it in his heart. The few of them passed through the flowery corridor that was overflowing with the fragrance of flowers. The shade of the trees reduced the heat of the summer by a bit until they entered a few tall pavilions. The cold air hit them in the face. Chu Qingyan sighed in her heart. As expected of the princess, she was so generous that the entire courtyard was filled with ice cubes to cool down. Chu Qingyan's mind was focused on admiring the beautiful scenery in front of her. She didn't notice that the moment they entered, they had attracted the attention of most of the people present. Not long after they appeared, many people came to greet them. Most of them were young soldiers who had fought with them on the front line. Among them were Jean Xn and a few others. "General Zhu, Princess, you're here." Then, he glanced behind them and scratched his head. "Huoling and Turin didn't come?" "Their identities are special, so they won't appear on certain occasions," Xiao Su replied. "That's right, they aren't the same as us." Fang Lu finally realized and nodded. On the other hand, Chu Qingyan looked at Jean Xen, who was standing beside her. Her gaze was fixed on Xining, who was standing beside her. Her usually calm face revealed a rare look of surprise. Xining was too embarrassed to look at him. She twisted her fingers and rubbed the back of her hand. Chu Qingyan snickered inside. This pair of immature lovers. "Jean Xan, if you have time, come to the Wang Fu for a walk. Don't be so busy. You've become much darker and thinner recently." Chu Qingyan's tone carried slight reproach and concern. At the same time, she created a bridge between the two to create a chance for them to meet. Jean Xian looked at Xining and immediately responded. At this time, Fang Lu asked, "Lord, several of our brothers have also come. Do you want to go over and see?" Hearing this, Xiao Su turned to look at the little fellow. There were all men over there. If she went over, he was afraid it would be inconvenient for her. "It's fine, go do your work," Chu Qingyan said very reasonably. At this time, Xiao Ran volunteered, "Eldest brother, don't worry and go. I'll be here for Qingyan. I can introduce some new friends to her." Xiao Su thought that the main purpose of coming out this time was for her to meet people. So, he said a few words to him and then handed the little fellow to him. He left with Fang Lu and Jean Xen. When Jean Xen left, Xining finally dared to look at him. At this time, a hand suddenly appeared in front of her. Xining stilled. Looking at the newcomer, she couldn't help but say angrily, "Young Master Hua, what are you doing?" "Bringing you back to your senses." Hua Xiao popped out of nowhere and looked at her with a smile. Then, she suddenly leaned close to her ear. "Oh right, when I was wandering around just now, I found many women looking at your family's gene exit. You have to keep an eye on him. Don't let him be eaten by the wolves, tigers, and leopards here." Xining blushed, but she was stupid and couldn't win against her. She could only ask her master for help. Chu Qingyan watched the two's conversation from the side. Seeing this, she didn't help. Instead, she stood on Hua Xiu's side and said, "Xining, this is the reason why I brought you in. Don't let our good intentions down." Xining wanted to cry but had no tears. Even her master was bullying her. Ooh, at this time, Xiao Ran noticed Hua Xiu and asked curiously, "This is?" Only then did Chu Qingyan remember that she forgot to introduce the two. Xiao Ran, the current fourth prince. "This is my good friend Hua Xiu." In front of unfamiliar people, Hua Xiu restrained her temper and politely greeted Xiao Ran. "Since it's still early, I'll take you for a walk. I often come to Aunt Hueyu's courtyard, so I'm very familiar with it." In order to leave a good impression in Chu Qingyan's heart, Xiao Ran took the initiative to take care of the girls. But Hua Xiu agreed. There was a beautiful scenery here and a handsome man accompanying her. If she didn't appreciate it, it would be a waste of the sleep she sacrificed when she woke up before dawn. Because the main character had yet to appear, the people who came gathered in twos and threes, chatting and laughing. However, it could be felt that their topic revolved around Chu Qingyan. Just now, when Chu Qingyan came in, she was protected by the two brothers, Xiao Su and Xiao Ran. One was the current emperor's favorite prince, and the other was the recently rising and outstanding aristocrat, Lord. Just this treatment alone was enough to show that Chu Qingyan was different. Moreover, the conflicts between women came very suddenly and without reason. Sometimes it was because of the same clothes, and sometimes it was because one's appearance was better than the others. Therefore, Chu Qingyan, who was the most eye-catching in both appearance and status, was envied by all the women present. "Mingzhu, isn't that His Highness the Fourth Prince? Why is he with that stinky girl from the Chu family? Isn't she the King of England's fiancée? But it seems that she is very close to His Highness." Since Xiao Ran came in, Jing Mingzhu's eyes followed him, but he couldn't see anyone else except for Chu Qingyan. She was already uncomfortable in her heart, and when she heard her sisters say this, she felt even more uncomfortable. She was obviously the one who liked him, so how could he be so close to Chu Qingyan? She had never seen His Highness the Fourth Prince show such an expression to her. The more she thought about it, the angrier she felt. "Let's go and meet her." Jing Mingzhu flung the handkerchief in her hand and walked up with her head held high. When the women beside her saw that there was a good show to watch, they also excitedly followed. Chapter 1051. Chu Qingyan and the others were strolling around the garden under Xiao Ran's lead. Suddenly, a group of women with unkind expressions walked towards them. Chu Qingyan felt the other party's gaze on her and couldn't help but look up. She saw that the woman in the lead looked a bit familiar. Thinking back, wasn't she the woman who played chess with her at the palace banquet that night? She was called something like Mingzhu. Hua Xiuli thought that these people were here for her because she had received a lot of eye rolls for no reason today. She couldn't help but walk forward, but after taking a few steps, she was stopped by the people beside her. "They're here for me," Chu Qingyan whispered. Hua Xiuli stopped in her tracks and then stood next to her, imperceptibly increasing her aura. Xiao Ran also saw these people, but he didn't feel the strange atmosphere. He was planning to take Qingyan to the other side. Today's poetry gathering was an excuse, but it was to cultivate their relationship. He had to confirm whether Qingyan had feelings for him before he could propose to cancel the engagement. However, these people blocked their path. "Your Highness Fourth Prince, Miss Chu." Jing Mingzhu and the woman beside her saluted them. Xiao Ran wasn't in the mood to exchange pleasantries with them. He smiled slightly. "Miss Jing and the other ladies are too polite. You're also here to participate in the poetry gathering, so do your best. Then this prince will disturb your fun." After saying that, Xiao Ran took Chu Qingyan to another path, but unexpectedly, the path was blocked by these people. Xiao Ran frowned slightly. Jing Mingzhu didn't feel this way just now. Now that she found that Xiao Ran didn't even look at her, how could she report to her father and mother when she returned? Moreover, her self-esteem had suffered a heavy blow. Your Highness, Miss Chu and I hit it off at the palace banquet. Although I lost to her in chess, I'm sincerely convinced. Right now, I want to compare notes on poetry with her. Is it convenient? Jing Mingzhu believed that her literary talent was second to none in the capital. This was also the reason why she dared to come out and compete with Chu Qingyan. If Xiao Ran could see his brilliance, maybe he would keep his eyes on him and take the opportunity to humiliate Chu Qingyan. When Chu Qingyan heard this, the corner of her mouth twitched. Why did these girls from the capital like to use competitions to show off their talents? Couldn't they just sit down and have a good chat? She regretted coming to this poetry gathering. Miss Jing, in terms of poetry, Qingyan is not talented, so I won't embarrass myself, she replied calmly. It can't be? Mingzhu had already humbly asked for guidance. How could you say that? Is it because you can't compare? Or do you think we're not worthy of being your opponent? One of the girls said with a sharp tongue, as if Chu Qingyan was looking down on them. With this raised tone, it attracted quite a few people's attention. They looked at Chu Qingyan's group with strange gazes, as if they were blaming and complaining. Hua Xiao gave a cold snort. Don't you understand human language? Qingyan had made it very clear that she felt that this young Mistress Jing was more capable than her, so she rejected her. Why did it sound like she was looking down on you all? Hey, this is not the right way to slander someone. If you want to bully someone, then do it openly. Don't try to put up a front. With Hua Xiao's personality, it was impossible for her to let others bully her friends. The girls in the capital were used to being reserved. Even if they didn't get along well, they were polite on the surface. They had never seen a girl who hit the nail on the head and was so fierce. Jing Mingzhu and the others felt as if they had been slapped in the face in public. However, due to etiquette, they didn't know how to refute and could only stand there with their faces flushed red. When Xiao Ran saw this, he understood their tricks and was unhappy. They actually dared to slander Qingyan in front of him. It was simply too infuriating. Miss Jing, since Qingyan has already said that she doesn't want to exchange pointers, don't force her. We still have to go somewhere else. Excuse us. Xiao Ran's tone was stiff and not polite at all. This made the girls' faces turn pale. They knew that he was angry and didn't dare to provoke him. They immediately retreated a few steps and made way. Xiao Ran turned to Chu Qingyan and smiled. Let's go. Aunt Huiyu has planted a lot of strange flowers and herbs. I'll take you to see them. As he said this, the group of people left in front of Jing Mingzhu and the others. Having lost so much face in front of His Highness the Fourth Prince, Jing Mingzhu's face was ugly and angry. The Chu family is just a declining family and has never been glorious. Why is Chu Qingyan favored by so many people? Not to mention the retired emperor and His Majesty, even the King of England and His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince are very interested in her. It's really strange. One of the girls muttered. Do you still need to say it? Look at her bewitching appearance. As long as she waved her hand, countless men would fight to be the first to get close to her. I say. Before the other girl finished speaking, Jing Mingzhu glared at her and she kept quiet. Jing Mingzhu faced the girls and said with a gloomy expression, His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince is such an outstanding person. It can't be like what you say. It must be Chu Qingyan who is fawning over him. His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince saw that she is his future sister-in-law and couldn't refuse. Don't talk nonsense in the future. The girls looked at each other. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince took the initiative to get close to her. Didn't he see that Chu Qingyan treated him very normally? However, Jing Mingzhu's father was the Minister of Rights. They couldn't offend her and could only agree. After Jing Mingzhu and the others left, a master and a servant appeared. Because the tall locust tree had blocked their figures, no one had discovered them. Yao Ring looked in the direction Chu Qingyan and the others left and narrowed her eyes. Chu Qingyan, why can you become the consort of the King of England and receive preferential treatment from the Fourth Prince? A malicious look flashed across her face. She suddenly thought of a plan and slowly curled her lips. Since so many men revolve around you, then I'll let you have a taste of what it means to suffer the consequences of your own actions and lose your reputation. If His Royal Highness knew that you were so fickle, he might even divorce you. The more she thought about it, the happier Yao Ruin became. Let's go to a crowded place to walk around. She recovered her gentle appearance and walked in the opposite direction with the servant girl. Chu Qingyan, just you wait. After the poetry competition, you will know how powerful I am. At this time, they had already walked far away. Chu Qingyan looked at the person beside her with a light smile. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. It seems that I don't need to make a move in the future. Those people who provoke me will be scared away by you. Hua Xiao scoffed. This great ant has traveled far and wide for so many years. The roads that this great ant has walked are more than the salt that they have eaten. At this level, they still dare to talk nonsense in front of me. They must be tired of living. Lady Hua is really a heroine. You have the straightforwardness of a woman in the Jianghu. I admire you. Xiao Ran couldn't help but praise her. Chu Qingyan laughed at the side. Don't praise her. Who knows, her tail will start wagging. Hua Xiao stuck out her tongue at her. Just as they were about to say something, they saw the crowd rushing in one direction. Chapter 1052. Chu Qingyan saw a group of people escorting a gorgeously dressed woman from a distance. She thought that Princess Huiyu had arrived, which meant that the Lotus Poetry Festival was about to begin. So, they followed the crowd and slowly walked over. Qingyan, your seats are here. I'll be over there. If there's anything, you can look for me. Because men and women had different seats, they sat separately. Xiao Ran led them to their seats and whispered to them. Chu Qingyan nodded and told him not to worry. Then, she walked to the women's seats with Huali and the others. Xiao Ran looked at the direction Chu Qingyan left in a daze. After a while, he withdrew his gaze and walked to the other side. Xiao Ran and Chu Qingyan were the focus of the crowd. Xiao Ran's action fell into the eyes of many people. Even Princess Huiyu couldn't help but pay attention to it. Who's the woman who came with Ranner? Why does she look so unfamiliar? Princess Huiyu asked casually after sitting down at the head seat. As soon as she said this, many people around her scrambled to answer. That's Qing Yan of the Chu family, who caused a sensation at the palace banquet. She's also His Royal Highness' fiancée. A young woman from an official's family replied with a smile. So it's her. She's quite beautiful. Princess Huiyu's tone was light. Others couldn't tell whether she was praising Chu Qingyan or not, so they didn't say anything. At this time, Chu Qingyan and Huali had already arrived at the women's seats. However, they didn't know most of the people there, so it was a bit difficult for them to choose their seats. Suddenly, someone called out to them. Miss Chu, there's a seat here. Chu Qingyan heard the voice and looked over. It was a woman with a pretty face and a shy smile, but she was unfamiliar to her. However, she looked familiar. Chu Qingyan smiled at her and nodded. Then, she led a group of people over. It was said that Princess Huiyu had never set seats based on seniority. Most of the seats were chosen by the participants themselves. The seats were all small tables, and each table was only big enough for 4 people. Each person occupied one side of the table. Chu Qingyan's table was already occupied by 2 people, and with her and Xiao Li, it was just enough to fill the table. After she sat down, Chu Qingyan thanked the person who invited her. Many thanks. The shy woman hurriedly said, You're welcome. We're also short of 2 people. You came at the right time. Because Chu Qingyan happened to be face to face with her, she took in all of her expressions. She looked like a gentle woman, so she couldn't help but smile kindly at her. Miss Chu, you're really beautiful. Looking at you up close, I've never seen a woman more beautiful than you. At this time, the girl next to the woman restrained her temper and waited for them to finish their greetings before immediately interrupting. After speaking, the shy woman next to her gently pulled her sleeve. Only then did she realize that she was a little rude, so she hurriedly introduced herself. Sorry, I'm Yu Tianyue. You can call me Tianyu. This is my good friend, Qiling. Chu Qingyan and Hua Xiaoli looked at each other. They felt that this little girl was quite cute. Chu Qingyan nodded and smiled. Nice to meet you. I'm Chu Qingyan, and she's Hua Xiaoli. We're about the same age, so you can call us by our names. Sister Qingyan, Sister Xiaoli, Yu Tianyue and Qilingi both nodded. Hua Xiaoli couldn't help but look at her good friend next to her. In fact, Chu Qingyan should be the youngest of the four, but she was called the elder sister. How funny. Chu Qingyan shrugged to express her helplessness. Who asked you to have such a strong aura? Hua Xiaoli winked and sat down. Sister Qingyan, I heard that you've been in Lian City for a few years. Can you tell us what it's like there? What's the difference between it and the capital? Yu Tianyue saw that Chu Qingyan didn't put on any airs and was very easy to talk to. She immediately opened her mouth and asked non-stop. Chu Qingyan thought that the two girls in front of her were curious babies who didn't know much about the world. She thought that it was quite boring right now, so she could chat with these two girls to pass the time and learn about the current situation in the capital. Although it was Yu Tianyue who was asking long-winded questions, Qilingi, who was sitting quietly at the side, listened very seriously to Chu Qingyan's explanation. This was about His Royal Highness's past. The legends she had heard about him before were somewhat untrue. Now that she learned about it from the people close to him, it was as if she was participating in his life. Listening to these people and things related to him, she felt that her heart was full of joy. But in the end, Hua Xiaoli joined the conversation. She was experienced and knowledgeable, and the things she was involved in were things that women in the boudoir didn't know. Soon, she attracted everyone's attention. Taking this opportunity, Chu Qingyan left and sat at the side. She listened to Hua Xiaoli talk about the capital's matters while observing the surroundings. People who practiced martial arts had sharper senses than ordinary people. Just now, she had already noticed that many people were looking at her, both openly and secretly. Some were kind, some were malicious. In short, it made her feel very uncomfortable. She felt a very sharp gaze fall on her. She quickly caught sight of the other party and found that it was the organizer of the poetry meet, Princess Huiyu. Princess Huiyu met her gaze and was surprised. Then, the sharpness in her eyes disappeared, leaving only a faint smile. She even nodded at her, as if it was just an illusion. What's wrong? Hua Xiaoli took the time to ask her friend. The two maidservants opposite her were immersed in the interesting things she made up. Nothing. You guys are chatting quite happily. Chu Qingyan withdrew her gaze and said to her. Hua Xiaoli smiled and shook her head. She whispered, they haven't been out of the capital. They are amazed by the colorful world outside. Their horizons are too narrow. It's better for them to go out. Chu Qingyan smiled and looked at the two girls in front of her. She was quite touched. Noble girls like Qilingi were taught the 4 books and 5 classics since they were young, and women should abstain from needlework. After they finished their studies, they would be married to a family of equal social status under the order of their parents. Then, they would abide by the 3 obediences and 4 virtues, and would be a good wife to their husbands and children until they died of old age. Although this kind of life was stable, it was like a marionette without independent thought. If they were lucky enough to marry into a good husband's family, then they would be happy for the rest of their lives. However, men were allowed to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. It was a blessing to have many children, so most men did this. Women looked harmonious and beautiful on the surface, but in fact, they were secretly sad and had nowhere to vent. However, in her eyes, it was unfortunate. But to others, it might not be, because their thoughts were not the same. I heard that His Royal Highness is also coming to participate in the poetry gathering today. Why haven't I seen him yet? Yu Tianyue asked curiously. Qilingi heard this name and her heart trembled. She couldn't help but look at Chu Qingyan, waiting for her answer. Chu Qingyan looked around. Indeed, she didn't see anyone. She casually said, he was still here just now. Maybe he was hiding in a corner to discuss something with his colleagues. Chu Qingyan's casual and teasing words sounded intimate. This made Qilingi feel envious. At this time, a servant girl stood up and sang. Ladies and gentlemen, please sit for a moment. The poetry gathering is about to begin. Chapter 1053. Everyone's attention was immediately attracted by the singing. At this time, Princess Huiyu, who was sitting on the high seat, raised her hand. As a princess, her prestige was released, and the scene suddenly quieted down. Today, this imperial concubine is very happy to be able to invite the capital's young talents, young masters, and beautiful ladies to participate in this imperial concubine's poetry gathering. Normally, everyone doesn't have much entertainment, so this imperial concubine decided to invite everyone here to recite poems, play the zither, and paint together. As long as this time is not wasted, it will be fine. Princess Huiyu made the opening speech, and everyone expressed their approval and praise. Hearing everyone say that she was kind, considerate, and talented, Princess Huiyu was proud in her heart, but she still had a kind and gentle smile on her face. Well, since the theme of today's party is lotus appreciation, how can we miss such an important role? Come, draw the curtain. Princess Huiyu waved her hand, and 3 or 4 guards walked to the towering curtain at the side. They pulled the long string in their hands, and the curtain fell down. A cool summer wind blew, faintly carrying the fragrance of lotus, and then everyone saw the beautiful scenery covered by the curtain. There was no end in sight to the lotus flowers, pink and white, waiting to bloom. They were like shy young girls in full bloom, standing gracefully on the surface of the pond. The lotus leaves were bunched together, spreading out in layers into the distance. Egrets were flying low in the air, creating a refreshing and elegant scene. Princess Huiyu smiled and said, "I sent people to plant these last year. It took a year, and they finally bloomed today. I can't wait to invite everyone to enjoy it together." "Princess, you're so considerate. We're very honored to enjoy it together with you." Everyone exclaimed one after another, which greatly satisfied Princess Huiyu's vanity. Are all the people in the capital so hypocritical? I feel that they're even better at talking nonsense than us businessmen. Xiao twitched the corner of her mouth. She couldn't stand the flattery. Chu Qingyan curved her lips and said, "When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Just keep it in your heart and don't show it, so as not to scare people." She turned her head and saw the 2 girls at the same table looking at her with wide eyes. She couldn't help but touch her head. Forget it, it's better to talk less. Now, everyone can walk around and admire the lotus flowers. There is a chessboard and a guqin in the nearby pavilion. Feel free to play with them. However, since this queen has organized this event, there must be a reason for it. How about this? Within the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, everyone can compose a poem or a painting using the lotus flowers. This queen will pick out the best poem and painting and reward them handsomely. What do you think? Princess Huiyu's words were echoed by the crowd. Princess Huiyu nodded with satisfaction. Then she ordered the servants to bring her writing brush, ink, and paper. Xiao saw the extra brush, ink, paper, and inkstone on the table. The corner of his eyes twitched. "I can calculate the accounts, but forget about reciting poems. Qingyan, you can make 2 copies later. Just write my name on one of them." Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows and smiled. "Benefits? How about I treat you to the most famous place in the capital to eat delicious food?" Xiao probed. "Who do you think can make better food than the people in my residence?" Chu Qingyan shook her head. Xiao felt that it made sense. "Then what do you want?" "I haven't thought about it yet, so I'll owe you for now." Chu Qingyan nodded and replied. Xiao nodded without hesitation. Qi Lingyi and Yu Tianyue felt as if they were looking at flying immortals from outer space when the 2 people in front of them talked about cheating without any hesitation. They obviously felt that it was inappropriate, but the 2 of them said it so naturally that they couldn't refute or dissuade them. At this time, a figure appeared at the edge of the rockery not far away. His eyes swept across the scene and locked onto the person he was looking for. He avoided everyone's gaze and slowly walked over. Chu Qingyan turned her head and saw the person coming. Before the person arrived, a smile already appeared on his face. Qi Lingyi was seriously thinking about it when she suddenly felt that Chu Qingyan's expression had changed. Although she was still smiling, her smile was even brighter than before. Furthermore, Chu Qingyan's gaze went past her and looked behind her. Qi Lingyi could not help but turn around to look. She saw a tall black figure appear in front of her eyes. His movements were elegant and his temperament was noble. He wore a mask on his face and only a pair of deep eyes could be seen. It made people lose their minds when they saw him. "I have to go to the military camp for something. Can you do it alone?" Xiao Su only had eyes for his little fellow. He directly walked to her side and used the tall potted plants to hide his figure as he asked in a low voice. "If you have something to do, then go ahead. I still have Hua Xiao here, so don't worry." Chu Qingyan very considerately shook her head. Xiao Su nodded and turned to leave smoothly. He came and left in a hurry without taking away a piece of cloud. However, Qi Lingyi was stunned and her mind was in a mess. Chu Qingyan didn't notice that something was wrong with Qi Lingyi. After watching the big ice block leave, her eyes fell on the lotus flowers not far away. She listened to her friend who came back from a walk by the river to pass the time. "The lotus flowers in Jiangnan are so beautiful. The ones here are so malnourished that they bloom too small." At this time, Xiao Ran also ran over with his poem in his hand. He wanted Chu Qingyan to help comment on it. After being attacked by Xiao Ran and Hua Xiao in the courtyard, Jing Mingzhu was resentful. At this time, seeing that Xiao Ran and Chu Qingyan were so close, the resentment in her heart deepened. She looked at the painting under her pen and suddenly had an idea in her mind. A trace of complacency flashed through her eyes. She took the painting that she had just finished and walked to Princess Huiyu. She smiled sweetly and said, "Aunt, what do you think of my painting?" Jing Mingzhu's father married the sister of Commandery Prince Li, who was also Princess Huiyu's sister-in-law. Therefore, Jing Mingzhu was Princess Huiyu's niece. Jing Mingzhu was very popular with Princess Huiyu. At this time, she asked someone to take the painting. She looked at it carefully and nodded. "Mingzhu, your painting skills have improved a lot." Jing Mingzhu said modestly, "It's not as good as Aunt's painting skills. I want to give it to Aunt, but I feel that something is missing." Princess Huiyu smiled and said, "You are so considerate. Look carefully. It would be better if you could add a poem or two in this blank space." Jing Mingzhu approached Princess Huiyu and said coquettishly, "Aunt, you have a good eye. But Mingzhu wants to make another painting to participate in the competition. I can't think of any beautiful poem in my mind. Can I ask someone to add a poem or two?" "You little girl, are you trying to present a gift to Buddha with borrowed flowers?" Princess Huiyu was amused. "Tell me, who do you want to add a poem?" She knew that this little girl wanted to scheme against someone, but she chose to side with her relatives instead of reason. "Mingzhu lost to Miss Chu in chess, so I want to take this opportunity to ask her for advice on her poem." Jing Mingzhu blinked. Princess Huiyu couldn't help but think of the dazzling woman just now. Her smile faded a little. "Aunt allows it." Chapter 1054. Everyone had already left the banquet to admire the flowers and prepare to write poems and paint. Chu Qingyan's two little girls had also walked to the side of the pool not far away, leaving only her and Hua Xiao. At this moment, a person who looked like a eunuch suddenly walked to a few tables and asked in a loud voice, "Is Miss Chu here? The princess wants you to come forward and answer." This loud shout attracted the attention of the people nearby, and they all looked in the direction of Chu Qingyan with different expressions. The eunuch followed the line of sight of the crowd and quickly found her. He walked to her table and bowed politely, "Miss Chu, the princess wants to see you." She had already heard the loud shout just now, but she was a little unhappy. This person knew where she was sitting, and he was clearly trying to attract people's attention. She smiled and nodded without revealing anything, "Thank you, eunuch." When she stood up, Hua Xiao pulled her sleeve and whispered, "I'll go with you." Chu Qingyan looked up and saw that most people were approaching the main stage. After weighing the pros and cons in her heart, she nodded. Xiao Ran smiled and said, "Don't worry, my aunt is very nice. I'll go with you and see why she wants to see you. Chu Qingyan's lips twitched, and her smile was very faint. As she walked, she deliberately slowed down her pace and analyzed the situation. She and Princess Huiyu had never met before, so it could be said that they didn't know each other. When Big Ice Cube came to participate in the poetry competition, he didn't mention this person much. It could be seen that he didn't have a deep friendship with this princess. So, it seemed that Princess Huiyu either heard about her and wanted to see her, or she heard someone's words and wanted to make things difficult for her. However, after observing the princess's speech and behavior, she was more inclined to the latter, and became vigilant in her heart. Those who wanted to watch the show didn't mind it, and the crowd gathered around them. Some were watching the show, some were gloating, and some were gossiping. There were all kinds of people with different expressions. Chu Qingyan followed the eunuch and walked to Princess Huiyu. She bowed respectfully, and no one could find anything wrong with her. When Chu Qingyan walked over, Princess Huiyu had already secretly sized her up. Her appearance was very good, and she was the most outstanding woman she had seen in recent years. "You're Qingyan from the Chu family? I heard Miss Mingzhu talk about you. You're good at dancing and chess. You're really skilled in both literature and martial arts. After so many years, I haven't heard of such an amazing girl," Princess Huiyu said with a fake smile. Chu Qingyan did not feel that there was anything to be happy about. Instead, she felt even more pressured by the gazes of the people around her. "Princess, you praise me too much." Qingyan was only lucky to win against Miss Mingzhu. Qingyan is far inferior to you. You are the one who is truly proficient in both the pen and the sword. The reason why Princess Huiyu had a high status in Sichuan was mainly because she was praised by the Empress Dowager. She was good at writing and shooting, and she was talented in both literature and martial arts. Therefore, the Sichuan Emperor also had a whole new level of respect for her. Chu Qingyan took the opportunity to praise her. Princess Huiyu might have heard this kind of praise too many times, but she just smiled and was indifferent. "You haven't been in the capital these years. Are you used to it now that you're back?" Princess Huiyu asked. "Thank you for your concern, Princess. Qingyan is doing well," she answered obediently. "And, don't worry. Qingyan is very adaptable, and your nephew will also help her." Xiao Ran couldn't see the undercurrent between them, so he interrupted with a smile. Xiao Ran came out to speak for Chu Qingyan, which made Princess Huiyu look at him a few more times. At this time, Jing Mingzhu stepped forward and hugged her aunt. She said coquettishly, "Aunt, didn't you ask Miss Chu to write a poem?" Princess Huiyu seemed to have just remembered. She patted her forehead and said self-deprecatingly, "I'm getting old and my memory is getting worse. I forgot such an important thing." As she spoke, she turned to Chu Qingyan and said, "Qin, Mississippi Mingzhu drew a painting. It's very good, but it's a pity that it's missing something. Mississippi Mingzhu said that you're as talented as her, so she wants you to write a poem or two for this painting. What do you think?" It turned out that she was waiting for her here. Writing a poem was a lie. She wanted her to make a fool of herself. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows slightly. Seeing this, Hua Xiuli frowned in dissatisfaction. However, in this kind of situation, she had no status in front of the nobles in the capital. If she stood out, she would only make Qingyan look bad. Therefore, she could only suppress her anger. At this time, the painting had been unfolded in front of everyone. Chu Qingyan couldn't refuse it in time. It would only show that she was petty and didn't have any real talent. Xiao Ran looked at the painting seriously. "Sure enough, it's missing something. It's a good idea to write a poem. Qingyan, give it a try. It's okay if you can't write a poem." In the face of Xiao Ran's encouragement, Chu Qingyan smiled. Then, she turned to Princess Huiyu and said, "Qingyan, give it a try. As the fiancé of the King of England, you must have something extraordinary. Then, I'll give you half a cup of tea's time. If you write a poem well, I'll give you a reward." Princess Huiyu said with a faint smile. "Half a cup of tea's time?" Everyone looked at each other. Qi Lingyi and Yu Tianyue, who were by the river just now, also rushed over. When they heard the time, they couldn't help but be surprised. Even a talented scholar couldn't think of a poem and write it in such a short time. They couldn't help but worry for Chu Qingyan. When Jing Mingzhu heard this, she felt that her aunt's trick was really clever. She couldn't help but want to see Chu Qingyan make a fool of herself. The smile on Xiao Ran's face stiffened. He couldn't help but say, "Aunt, isn't the time given too short? Miss Chu hasn't spoken yet. What do you have to say? You're looking down on her too much." Princess Huiyu chuckled. As soon as these words came out, even if Chu Qingyan had an opinion, she had to swallow it. Chu Qingyan realized that Princess Huiyu's words had a hidden dagger. She sighed in her heart. This woman from the palace was really good at talking. She could praise you to the sky at any time, but her purpose was to make you fall even more miserably. Xiao Ran turned to look at Chu Qingyan. Seeing that she didn't show an embarrassed expression, he felt a little relieved and stopped talking. "Then let's start now." Princess Huiyu waved her hand, and someone came out to start the timer. Chu Qingyan walked out with a decent smile on her face. "You don't have to trouble yourself. Qingyan has already thought about it." "So fast?" Not only Princess Huiyu, but everyone present was surprised. However, seeing that Chu Qingyan didn't seem to be joking, everyone restrained their surprise and wanted to see how Chu Qingyan would deal with it. However, Princess Huiyu soon smiled. "Miss Chu is really smart. Come, prepare the ink, paper, and inkstone." When Hua Xiao heard her good friend's words, she secretly sighed in relief. However, she didn't know that Princess Huiyu still had a trick up her sleeve. In this way, regardless of whether Qingyan's poem was good or not, if her handwriting wasn't good, people would have a reason to criticize her. "What a cunning old fox," she complained in her heart. Chu Qingyan walked to the table prepared for her. Looking at the painting on the table, she raised her eyes to look at Jing Mingzhu. The corner of her mouth slightly raised, and a trace of ridicule flashed through her eyes. Then she lowered her head and picked up the brush. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.